across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you for the next 3 hours. And coming up at midnight, your chance to talk back. And we're going to be talking about cycling. Because the question is now being asked, should we now follow the Dutch and consider a speed limit for cyclists? And this is the reckless riding and the rise of e-bikes have forced the Netherlands to trial a 12 miles per hour restriction. And there are growing calls for tougher laws in the UK too. So at midnight, I want to talk to you. Should we be bringing in tougher laws for cyclists? There is no doubt about it that the roads are like the Wild West, particularly in London. I don't know what it's like in your area, you're going to have to tell me. But stepping out now onto a pavement or onto the road, you have to be so aware at the speed that these bikes are going in. So I want to know whether we should speed limit, and I don't know how you attach a speed limit to a vehicle without attaching a number plate to a vehicle. And I believe that in the Netherlands, they do have identifying tags on them. So should we have cyclists with identifying tags on them? A lot of people say, oh, if you do that, people won't cycle. Yes, of course they will. And as for those lycra louts, I mean, Richmond Park is a hellhole. It really is now. It used to be somewhere that you could just go, take your dogs for a walk, have a little wander about, not worry about anything. It is extraordinary. There's speed limits, obviously, for cars on the roads in Richmond. I think it's 10 or 15 miles per hour. It's very, very low. And you've got cyclists whoosh, going straight past you, not paying, and they're doing a timed circuit. So they don't give a damn about pedestrians or dogs or deer wandering into the roads. They treat them as if they're their own. And they get really annoyed with cars as well, because we get in their way while they're doing this stupid, pathetic timing thing that they do. Grow up. You're not a 14-year-old boy anymore. Come on. What's wrong with you? Anyway, I want to talk about that at midnight. I want you to tell me what it's like with cyclists and with those scooters as well on the pavements and everywhere. The pavements are no longer safe for pedestrians. Parks are no longer safe for pedestrians. It is absolutely ridiculous. And we are at the tail end of the pecking order. So when you're a pedestrian, you should be looked after by every other vehicle on the road. But cyclists, they don't care. That's the impression I get. So we're going to talk about that at midnight. Should we follow the Dutch and have speed limits imposed on cycling? So we're going to be talking about that. The wonderful Vincent Moss will be here to go through the papers. Then we are heading to Cuba to find out what's going on with the sanctions. It is devastating what's happening in Cuba at the moment. It's absolutely devastating. But is Cuba going to be as easy to overthrow as Venezuela appears to have been? We'll be talking about that as well. So all of that is to come. And like I said, we're going to be talking about bikes as well. But we're going to start with the Mandy files. I mean, how embarrassing. Have you read any of these messages? I'd be just so... But this is why I delete my WhatsApp every couple, particularly with one or two friends, every couple of weeks, or if not days. But today saw the release of more than 1,000 pages of documents linked to the former UK ambassador to the US, Lord Mandelson. The second tranche of internal files shows that Mandelson refused to hand over his WhatsApp messages and urged Starmer's government to become more Trumpian. He promised they would never regret his appointment, criticised Labour's private school tax raid and slammed Wes Streeting as immature, even though Wes Streeting clearly had a bit of a boy crush on Mandy, if you look at all the messages. And Mandelson messaged former Transport Secretary Louise Haigh after her resignation and tried to organise a meeting between Starmer and the controversial Palantir founder Peter Thiel. So all of that, a lot of this is really embarrassing, but is it any more embarrassing for the PM than it's already been? Or are we just all over it now? Don't care. Let's talk to Kevin Schofield now, political editor at the Huffington Post UK. Kevin, if we've learnt something from these files, it is clean out your messages every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Petrie, these messages were sent with no suspicion or expectation that they would ever be released to the public for people like me to be poring over. Page after page after page of, I mean, a lot of it's quite tedious, as WhatsApp messages tend to be, but because they are, senior politicians, what they say matters, and, what they say about one another is absolutely fascinating. And we knew that Peter Mandelson can be quite waspish and quite cutting in his comments about people, and we weren't let down. Let's just say that. And what these WhatsApp messages said.
But a lot of these messages are, I mean, they're just awkward and embarrassing, aren't they? They're obsequious. There's a lot of toadying up to Mandelson. There's a lot of, it's just, I mean, it is just embarrassing. And particularly, I think, Wes Streeting, for me, because he obviously thought that Mandy loved him, and Mandy's saying other things about him behind his back that he didn't, and he's going, "Oh, you're so great, Mr. Mandelson." I mean, it's just awful.
No, absolutely. They make your toes curl, actually, at times. And you're right. I mean, Wes Streeting comes over as a bit of a fanboy, a bit of a Mandy fanboy, and it's obviously not reciprocated because at one point, Peter Mandelson, I think it's in messages to Pat McFadden, who was Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster at the time, basically saying he thinks that Streeting's having an early midlife crisis. And he's complaining about, all these messages about Israel and what's happening in Gaza. So clearly the feeling wasn't mutual, let's just say that, between Streeting and Mandelson. So I'm sure Wes Streeting maybe feels a little bit bruised this evening.
Yeah,
some of these Mandelson messages.
Like you said, they weren't ever to be divulged. But the other thing that I found really interesting about this was the meetings that Wes Streeting was having with newspapers. First of all, with the Murdochs. They had a dinner with Lord Mandelson and the Murdochs. And this all is Trumpian, right? I mean, this whole idea that I know newspapers and politicians have had relationships in the past, but it's not advisable, is it? I mean, it's not a good look.
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, you go all the way back to when Tony Blair was courting Rupert Murdoch, trying to get the Sun to support Labour before the 1997 general election. You're right. I mean, that type of thing went on. But then in the wake of the phone hacking scandal, when Rupert Murdoch and News International, as it was known then, were seen as, beyond the pale, well, clearly that didn't last forever. And you're right, there was these meetings still going on because, politicians do like to curry favour with popular newspapers, in this case the Sun or other papers in the News UK stable. So again, it's the type of thing that goes on. We all know it goes on, but you don't often get to peek behind the curtain, which is what this publication of documents, 1,500 pages of them this afternoon, have allowed us to do. And there's a few, I think, red faces around Whitehall this evening.
The idea, just going back to the newspapers for a moment, is that the public, we like to believe we have free and independent press here, but things like this, again, it really is unedifying, isn't it, for the public to learn that these secret little deals are going on, and let me take you to a fabulous dinner that the taxpayers invariably paying for in order that I can curry favour with your newspaper. Again, that is the public feeling cheated, I would imagine, by like you said, peeping behind that curtain. Although we've always known it's kind of gone on, to actually see it in front of you is oh, come on. We're supposed to have a free and independent press in this country.
Yeah, and it's not just Labour; all parties,
Yeah, they all do,
and have done it, and I dare say will continue to do it. The one thing I will say though is, as a newspaper man myself, it's unfortunate that I think that newspapers are no longer as powerful and as influential as they once were. So it may well be going forward that we maybe don't see quite so much as this. Having a front page in the Sun or an endorsement from the Sun doesn't carry nearly as much weight as it once did when the paper was selling millions of copies every single day. But there's no doubt at all that politicians all want to be in the good books of the popular press. They don't want to be getting battered every day by the media, and that is why you see these attempts to curry favour. And
just do the job of running the country well, and then you won't get bad press. I mean, it's not difficult, right? I mean,
yeah. Although, as you know, Petrie, a lot of these newspapers, if Keir Starmer managed to find a cure for cancer tomorrow, they'd want to know why he didn't do it yesterday.
It's true.
It's just that's just the way it is.
That's a very good point. A lot of people making the point, though, Kevin, much like the Epstein files, that we haven't seen it all yet, right, with the Mandy files. And there's a lot of files being held back for legal reasons by the police, and that actually it will be this third tranche of papers that will shine the most light on Peter Mandelson, because it's looking at his legal, illegal or legal behaviours, whichever side of the coin you're on, and his relationships with companies and with America. So they are going to be the most significant, aren't they?
Yeah, and we don't know when that will be, because they've been, as you say, held back at the request of the police, who are carrying out a criminal investigation into Peter Mandelson's behaviour, his alleged misconduct in public office, the suggestion that he was passing on secret government documents to Jeffrey Epstein, and he's been investigated for that. So, yeah, obviously the police didn't want that investigation to be hampered in any way or to be prejudiced. So those documents have yet to see the light of day. One wonders when they will, or indeed if they will. If he were to be charged and it went to court, then I dare say these documents would then come out. I'm not too sure if they would if he wasn't charged, but we remain to see. But other than that, there's nothing else to come out. All the WhatsApp messages came out today, and to be honest with you, I was a little bit underwhelmed by them. We'd been told to expect excruciating, embarrassing criticisms by ministers of Keir Starmer, and there just weren't any. There was one or two little. All the criticism came from Peter Mandelson himself. But we thought there may well be cabinet ministers, slagging off Keir Starmer behind his back. But unfortunately, from a news perspective, those were pretty thin in the ground.
I tell you what also struck me was the extraordinary plague of phone theft that appears to have happened to these people who were talking to Mandelson.
I mean, you literally could not make it up. I mean, Nick Thomas Symonds, who is now Cabinet Office Minister, Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, he had his phone stolen outside the Home Office. I mean, outside the home, you literally, as I say, couldn't make it up. It's unbelievable. Because we did wonder why he had no messages at all between him, WhatsApp messages at least, between him and Peter Mandelson. But it turns out that was because his phone was stolen. So we're assured by allies of Nick Thomas Symonds that every communication he had that he could lay his hands on with Peter Mandelson were handed over, but certainly there was nothing by way of embarrassing WhatsApp messages, if indeed they ever existed, because, as you say, that phone was
along with Morgan McSweeney's phone as well.
Morgan McSweeney, although we'll have to point out a man has been arrested for that theft. So
okay, we'll not go any further with that then. Has this latest tranche that has come out? Where does this place Keir Starmer? Does this have any impact on him? It feels like it doesn't really. Like there's so much else going on that this isn't another nail in his coffin.
No, I think it could have been a lot worse. I think it just sort of confirmed what we already knew. There's just, I think the most revelatory messages were those between Pat McFadden and Peter Mandelson, in which they openly discuss the fact that Keir Starmer's authority was shot to bits by the welfare reform rebellion last year. We have Peter Mandelson talking about his number 10 operation being beleaguered and bereft, how it lacked verve, how he needed to be a bit more champion, a bit more daredevil. But we know that's not Keir Starmer's shtick, really, is it? That's just not what he's like, and he's never going to change. So I think a lot of Labour MPs maybe reading it will just think, yeah, we know, we've got this guy's number, we know exactly what he's like. This is why voters don't like him. This is why we don't like him. And there was nothing, I don't think, in the messages which would change their minds.
So overall, these are just a little bit underwhelming and not really of any significance politically. I
don't think they lived up to the hype. And, you've got to remember, at the heart of this was the row over how he was appointed in the first place, despite all the warnings, despite the fact that the government and Keir Starmer knew about his links to Jeffrey Epstein, possible security risks, about how he had trouble passing vetting, and yet he still gave him the job. And we knew all that already, so there was nothing in it particularly revelatory on that front. The thing we were looking for today was criticism of Keir Starmer, really, by his ministers, and unfortunately that wasn't there either. It was interesting to political geeks like me, but in terms of, I think, shifting the political dial, I don't think it does. Yeah,
like you said, actually, it's more embarrassing for the likes of Wes Streeting than for Keir Starmer. I think, looking at the synopsis that I've seen. Let's just quickly talk about Keir Starmer, because it's all gone a bit quiet, hasn't it, while we're waiting for the by-election to take place. What does this signify for him? Is this a chance to regroup, or is this a chance for him to start packing up number 11?
Well, yeah, I mean, we are all on tenterhooks really now, just waiting to see what happens in the Makerfield by-election. We've still got 2.5 weeks to go, so a lot could change between now and then. But I think everyone expects that were Andy Burnham to win, then I don't think Keir Starmer would last much longer as Prime Minister. I think he would possibly, I think the best he could maybe hope for is to try and maybe set out a timetable, maybe to leave at party conference in September, for instance. That's maybe when Burnham would potentially take over. But you're right, we're in a bit of a strange no man's land right now, because no one really knows what's going to happen with this by-election. If Burnham wins, then I think he becomes Prime Minister. If he doesn't win, then Labour are in all sorts of trouble, because then the Labour MPs start to absolutely panic, assuming...
Well, exactly that, because if he doesn't win, which isn't a given these days, right?
It's possible.
It is possible. Then the whole thing starts up again, and then it really is crisis time, isn't it?
Completely crisis time, because then we're left with a situation where Labour MPs realise that really they are done for, because if even Andy Burnham can't win against reform in the north of the country, then who can? And we know that Labour MPs will, in panic, probably say, right, we have to get rid of Starmer. But whoever takes over, we know is going to be second choice, because their preference would be for Andy Burnham. But he wouldn't be able to do it because he wouldn't be an MP. And then you're left with the possibility of Wes Streeting. I think no. I don't think he'd win with the party members. Ed Miliband, Angela Rayner. I mean, all sorts of people might throw their hat into it. Keir Starmer might even decide to run. The whole thing would just be an absolute circus.
I mean, my reckoning is that if that were to be the case, if Burnham didn't win, anybody who took over would just be there just until they can get Burnham in. So you're looking at, again, a revolving door, potentially, before the next general election, of them trying to get Burnham in position. That'd be my take on it.
Well, perhaps, yeah, but where would that seat be for Andy Burnham? I mean, I think this is a one-shot deal.
This is a problem.
I mean, if he doesn't win it this time, then he rocks up in another seat, claiming to we want to represent this seat rather than Makerfield. Having already tried to stand in Gorton and Denton and got knocked back there, I think it would start to look pretty ridiculous. So that's why this is such a consequential and
I mean, who would have thought, least of all the people of Makerfield, that this would be the centre now of the entire political future, potentially, of this country?
Well, quite. I mean, it is quite remarkable and quite a responsibility, actually, on the good people of Makerfield. And I think they realise that there's so much at stake, and I think that will motivate a lot of people to come out and vote in a by-election who might otherwise not have done. Either because they want Andy Burnham to become Prime Minister, or because they want to stop Andy Burnham becoming Prime Minister. So it's absolutely fascinating, and that's what makes it so unpredictable. I mean, right now I think Burnham is definitely the favourite, but it's by no means guaranteed that they'll win.
I don't think. I think the days of guaranteed anything politically are well behind us now, Kevin. Those lovely days where we could just about figure out what was going on, gone. Absolutely gone. Kevin, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. Kevin Schofield, their political editor at the Huffington Post. I need to give you a list of candidates for the Makerfield by-election. It's not up, guys. So we're just putting the list up now so that I can talk you through, because it's Purdah. So I've got hair across my eyes. So I have to tell you who the other candidates are in the interest of balance and fairness during this closed period. So Jake Austin for the Liberal Democrats, Andy Burnham, of course, the Labour Party, Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party, Alan Howling Lord Hope, the official monster raving loony party, Robert Kenyon, Reform UK, Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain, Sarah Wakefield, the Green Party, Peter Ward, Rejoin EU, and Michael Winstanley, the Conservative Party. That is the full list of the candidates in the Makerfield by-election, which is taking place in 2.5 weeks' time. Right, quick break, back in a second.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you. And coming up at midnight, of course, it is your chance to talk back. And it's a full hour. No guests, nothing else, just you and me. And we're going to be talking about cyclists and asking the question, is it time that we put limits on the speed that cyclists can go? They are certainly considering that in the Netherlands, one of the biggest cycling countries, or the countries known for cycling. Reckless riding and the rise of e-bikes have forced the Netherlands to trial a 12-mile-per-hour restriction. And there are growing calls for tougher laws in the UK too. So there are now so many more accidents on the roads caused by cyclists that a lot of people now are saying it is time that they were more controlled, if you like, by laws. Cyclists will tell you that they don't need it. Cyclists will tell you that they're absolutely fine. Cyclists will tell you it's always the fault of the pedestrian, or it's always the fault of the car. We know that as users of the road, as drivers or as pedestrians or as other cyclists, frankly, that is not the case. That cyclists really are a law unto themselves. The arrogance, the bullying that goes on, it is just not pleasurable now. I got rid of my bike ages ago. I'm just not going to do it, because if you're pottering along, you get shouted at by cyclists. It's just horrible by these lycra louts. Worst, of course, is at the weekends or in the evenings in the summer, where these people believe that the roads and the pathways are completely their own. They can do what they like with it. Cycling at speed. I mean, like I said, at Richmond Park, which is beautiful. I go to Richmond. I do go to Richmond quite a lot. It's a lovely place to take the dogs for a walk. It's just huge expanses of countryside, if you like. It's not so much a park as it is parkland, and it's lovely, or it was, until you see these cyclists speeding. I mean, literally speed. They're all, trying to outdo themselves. The last speed that they went round the loop. They don't care a jot about dogs. They'll shout at you if your dog wanders into the road, which dogs do. It's just like, because the cars are going so slowly. And everybody's mindful. When you're driving to Richmond to park, you're so mindful of other people. You're so mindful of dogs that might run across the road, or deer that might run across the road. We're so mindful of it as car drivers, not cyclists. They could not give a flying thing about other people who might want to use the road. They're too engrossed in this speeding and trying to beat their last best speed thing, like a 12-year-old boy with clackers on the wheels. Do you remember those? Put a card on your wheels to make it sound like it was going faster. I don't have much time for these cyclists. I really don't. I think they're a menace. I think that they're selfish. I think they don't care about anybody else but even them. So they don't care about other cyclists either. They don't care about anybody but themselves. And they all dress up in these stupid costumes and try to outdo, shave their legs because a little bit of hair might slow them down on their speed tracking or whatever it's called. I mean, you're not professional cyclists. I won't wax my legs. That bit of hair might slow me down by a billionth of a second. Grow up. I've had enough. I really have had enough, because even just a gentle walk in the park now is not pleasant. You're getting binged and pinged and tinged by bikes all the time, telling you to get out of the way, whereas they could just kind of slow down or get off their bikes and walk through the park. But no. So is it time that there were more laws controlling cyclists? I say it's well past time to control cyclists. A 12-mile-an-hour speed limit on an electric bike, on a pedal bike, I don't care. Stick a speed limit on it. We're all held to speed limits. You should be too. So I want to hear what you think. I think I've just got that off my chest. I might have done. Right, so give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, it is Talk and it is Petrie here with you. Just a reminder that coming up at the top of the hour we have the wonderful Vincent Moss. He's going to be here to go through the papers, and we're also going to be talking about dangers created by cyclists. Before that, I just need to read out the full Makerfield candidate list to you. Again, I know, but it's just one of those things we have to do. It's an Ofcom rule, and I missed a couple off the last time I read it. It was right at the bottom of the page. So, Austin, Liberal Democrats, Andy Burnham, Labour Party, Dan Clark, Libertarian Party, Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the official monster raving, Looney Party, Robert Kenyon, Reform UK, Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain, Sarah Wakefield, Green Party, Peter Ward, Rejoin EU, Michael Winstanley, the Conservative Party, Count Binface, Account Binface Party, John Dye, Independent, Ed Gemmell, Climate Party, Paul Gould, Independent, and Robert Poundor, Protect the Wild. So there you are, they're on your screen as well if you are watching, so my apologies for that. Now though, tensions between the US and Cuba continue to rise fast. A strict US oil blockade has caused a major power crisis on the island. Washington has offered $100 million in aid, but only if Cuba changes its leadership. It's worth pointing out, for the last 70 years, it's been the same ruling communist parties. The US is using its Venezuela playbook by charging former leader Raul Castro. However, experts warn that Cuba shouldn't be treated like Venezuela, and in fact won't behave like Venezuela either. Unlike Venezuela, Cuba's government is highly unified, with no internal factions willing to work with Washington. Squeezing Cuba could backfire, triggering a massive migrant crisis instead of a quick regime change. And does America have a plan for if it all goes wrong, if it doesn't go by the Venezuela playbook? Well, joining me now is Fulton Armstrong, who's a former CIA analyst and national intelligence officer for Latin America. Thank you so much for joining me. Just first of all, it is interesting, isn't it, that many people are saying this will be more like Iran for Donald Trump than it will be like Venezuela for Donald Trump. Explain why, if you don't mind. Could you explain why?
It's complex. I think it would say Iran, but maybe we could also look at Iraq, we could look at Afghanistan, and we could look at Vietnam, where you had essentially political conflicts, political dynamics on the table that the United States simply didn't understand or chose not to look at because of our really deep faith in our military hardware, our shock and awe capabilities. Your briefing was excellent. It is true that they think that it's like Venezuela. Cuba is very different, and the relationship between the United States and Cuba has also been radically different. The institutions in Venezuela and Cuba are also very different. And so to think that you can go in there and do a little bit of shock and awe in a couple of military facilities and then kidnap, or render is the word that they use, the president and bring him up here to face trial, that's not the way Cuba operates. The Cuban leadership is much more dynamic.
Well, the Cuban leadership, for all its failings, and there have been many, the state of Cuba at the moment isn't just down to the US blockade, but it does have the backing of its people in even those from an outside force. They would then gather together potentially and reject any sort of American force running Cuba.
But you're right. There's a lot of anti-government talk. Cubans are very verbal. They don't hesitate to express their concerns. And yes, the Cuban government was slow in doing the reforms. And when they did certain reforms, however good they were, they didn't do it effectively, etc. There's a lot of discontent with the government. But they're a family. They're a nation that has a profound sense of nationalism and national pride, and a profound suspicion of the United States. They don't want Miami or Secretary of State Marco Rubio to become Governor General. They want to basically push us to do reforms. That's good, but let us do our own history, do our own future. And they do have plans. During the period of normalization where Barack Obama and Raul Castro agreed to normalize, Barack Obama didn't lift the embargo, but he did open a couple of little windows that would increase the flow of American visitors or the dollars into the country. We were supporting, but in a non-aggressive way, the creation of the private sector, which the Cuban government allowed to grow and stuff. So the Cubans do have plans. The Cubans are not stupid, but when you breathe so hard down their necks and you have the garrote so tight, you're not going to be able to have the political dynamic in the country for them to do reforms. So if we then go in, because a lot of our sanctions are intended to block their reforms, they don't do the reforms. People are very unhappy. But if we go in there, the people will rally around the flag because they're Cubans first.
I mean, that is very similar to what's happening in Iran, isn't it? Because that was underestimated, that although people wanted regime change, when it comes to completely trying to overthrow a government, overthrow a country, the people will gather together. And Cuba has a long history of issues with America. I mean, this has been going on a very long time. But like you said, Obama had a different way of dealing with this. Trump's idea of a gun to the head, basically, which is what this recent blockade is, I just don't know why he imagines that will work with these people. He must have people advising him, right, that this is different to Venezuela.
A group of us retired intelligence officers wrote a memo. I was the principal drafter, so I'll take blame or credit, as it should be, last week, because we're convinced that while our president has a reputation for being impulsive and maybe somewhat childlike in his impulses and stuff, but he's probably also getting bad information. And part of that is the responsibility of the U.S. government itself, because we put $50 million a year into supporting people that we call independent journalists or oppositionists. And what they do is they tell us what they know we want to hear. We're not really getting the truth from them. So it's more complex. But we don't understand. And the history part is really important because Cubans know history. Americans don't know. We're sort of proud of our ignorance of history. We like to stumble into stuff as if we're the future, we're the present, and we're powerful and all that. And the Cubans know, for example, that even during their War of Independence against Spain, we derailed a lot of the nationalistic tendencies of that, and we then imposed on them through various sanctions and stuff, amendments to their constitution that had them surrendering their national sovereignty. And Cubans know that, and we turned a blind eye to serious human rights violations in the pre-Castro era, and immense corruption and the mafia behavior and stuff. When Fidel came, he came in first and foremost as a nationalist. You could call him a radical nationalist, but when you cut him off, he says, I need a lifeline, and he went to the Soviet Union.
And that is the issue here, isn't it? That if Cuba collapses, even if America weren't to go into it but continued with this blockade, that collapse will leave a vacuum that China or Russia could go into. Surely that's the last thing that America actually wants. So rather than taking a sledgehammer to Cuba, it seems that they should be negotiating to make sure that doesn't happen.
Among the scenarios, those are two important ones. But Russia doesn't really want Cuba, and frankly, Ukraine has Russia tied up a little bit. And China might like to poke the gringo in the eye every once in a while on Cuba issues, but they don't want it either. They've been urging Cuba to do the kinds of reforms that you and I were talking about a moment ago. So the bad case scenario is the more likely one, and that is that really bad people in Cuba, maybe even organized crime or something, that they rise up. One thing we can pretty safely say is that every time that the U.S. and Cuba have a confrontation and Cuba survives, it's the hardliners who emerge stronger, not the moderates. There are a lot of moderates in that country, but the hardliners are the ones that say, we can't trust the gringos, or Yankees, they call us, and stuff. So all of those scenarios are bad. What will happen then is mass migration. mass migration that will be encouraged from outside, as it was in earlier mass migrations, that Cuban Americans would encourage people to be leaving because they thought, let's just make the whole system collapse by having people leave the country.
When we look at Donald Trump and the way he talks about Cuba, I'm sort of reminded of just a week or so ago where he said, oh, I can do what I like with Cuba. I can do anything I want with it. That must have been like a punch to the gut for the Cuban people. It's like, how dare you talk about our country like that?
Even people who oppose the Cuban government, the policies of the government, that's going to say, wait a second, who do these people think they are? And so you're right. And there's a little distrust of Miami, and you're right. More Miami than they are Washington, D.C. And they don't trust them either, because this diaspora is unique. It's partly the U.S. government's fault because we never encouraged them to contribute to positive solutions, even from the Bay of Pigs. The U.S. government use with them was to have them overthrow the government, rather than find ways. Those of us that are long-term Cuba watchers have seen that Cuba can undergo evolutionary processes. Even today, the Cuba that you see today is not the Cuba that we saw in 1990-91 when the Soviet Union collapsed. They have made changes. But it's very hard for people to make evolutionary change when they have no resources and when somebody's badgering them all the time. And you probably know that by US law, we do not allow the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, or the Inter-American Development Bank to offer them an ounce of funding or an ounce of advice. So where are they going to go? How are they going to do it? I don't want to sound like I'm defending them too much, but we are players much more than we admit in a place like Cuba. And therefore, what we're saying now is we're players and we want to take it over. And I think the words that President Trump used was, I can take it.
I can take it.
I can do whatever I want.
It's interesting because I'm really struggling, Fulton, to think of any forced regime change that has worked. I mean,
No,
we're in the situation with Iran at the moment because the Brits and the Americans got involved in the 70s, right? I mean, every single time you try to... It's not a regime change that the people are saying, please help us, and then we've got somebody who will take over. Cuba doesn't really have an opposition party. They don't really have anybody who's ready to take over anyway. But when has it ever worked? I mean, you're CIA, you're former CIA analyst. I just can't think... You know better than me.
Our job was to tell truth to power, not to do policy. And we had to be honest that we just don't do this well.
No.
What we should do is what we've done in the basically the right-leaning governments as they became democratic. We actually did some things well. Spain, you want to become a democracy? We'll create space for you. We'll make resources for you, and we will allow you to do evolutionary change. Taiwan, same thing. The Taiwan policy was quite brilliant. And then you also in Korea, we do have successes, but never, as you said, when we impose it from outside, and we then designate who's in charge. Look at the people we put in Vietnam, the people we put in Afghanistan.
Look at Saddam Hussein. Yeah.
Well,
you know, I mean, we impose these people, we put these people in, and then they become our enemies. Trump is saying there is suggestions that they're going to go and mount this Venezuela-type attack on Cuba, and it feels like it's soon. For political reasons, because Trump wants to be seen to have a win before, because the Iran didn't go his way before the midterms. Is that a concern to you? Do you think that he will rush in there and create more havoc?
I think you're right. He needs a win, and this is Cuba. Cuba, what are they?
Easy.
A little island?
Yeah.
It's easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And so let's go ahead and do it. And they're huffing and they're puffing. They're not going to huff and puff and blow the house down in Cuba. They can't do a rendition as cleanly as they could in Venezuela as well. My personal hunch is that they have to do something because they've been doing flights. They've got now another aircraft carrier that's nearby, that they're going to have to do something. But it probably would be, rather than a rendition or decapitation operation, maybe it would be some symbolic thing to use drones or missiles or something to take out something that represents the Cuban Revolution. and as if that would then cause tumult. Or what they could say, and they've hinted at this at times, is to go back to what, don't tell them I said this, but go back to normalization too. Remember, we had NAFTA, and then we did NAFTA 2. We gave it a new name because it was a good policy. But normalization was a pretty good policy. And maybe they realized that by just dealing with us with a little bit doesn't mean we sell out. It doesn't mean they sell out, but we just walk down. What I like to say is we walk down the primrose path. We don't hold hands, we don't hug, and we certainly don't go home together. But we do a couple of things and let them find their own way.
Yeah, in other words, go back to the deal that Obama had, exactly the same as they're trying to do in Iran.
But give it a new name.
give it a new, no, not the Obama deal, whatever you say, not to Donald Trump. Right. Fulton, a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you. I hope I get to speak to you again. Fulton Armstrong there, former CIA analyst and National Intelligence Officer for Latin America. Quick break, back in a second.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening. This is Talk and it's Petrie, and coming up at the top of the hour is Vincent Moss to go through the newspapers. But also coming up at midnight in Talkback, we're going to be talking about this topic. Reckless e-bike riding has forced the Netherlands to test a strict 12 miles an hour speed limit on cycle paths. Fast, modified e-bikes are causing chaos and dangerous crashes there. Well, now the UK is facing the same problem. British safety groups want tougher laws, as official data shows that over 15,000 people are injured in bicycle and e-scooter crashes, with around 80 cyclists killed or seriously hurt every single year. And tragically, latest police figures show that the number of cycling casualties was growing 10% per year, the largest change of all road user groups. So, do we need to be stricter with cyclists for their own sake? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Jamie Hassell, who's the Executive Director at the Parliamentary Advisory Council for Transport Safety. Jamie, thank you for joining me. I think a lot of people already contacting me, because this is what we're going to be discussing later on, absolutely believe there should be speed limits imposed on cyclists. We've seen accidents happen. I've had somebody whose death was definitely exacerbated by being hit by a cyclist a month or two earlier. So we're all seeing this reckless behaviour. What can be done?
Well, I mean, the first thing is to ideally segregate different traffic. So, if we can segregate the bikes from pedestrians and the bikes from cars, then it's much safer, because if everyone's traveling the same direction, roughly the same speed, it's much safer. The problem we have is that we don't really have that much space on our roads and on our pavements. So, I often walk to the train station and I see kids on the path, and they should be on the road, but I wouldn't really want them on the road because it's a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, heavy traffic, but we're in this sort of situation where we're sort of not segregating the traffic as much as we should do, or having speed limits that are more forgiving if there is an incident.
But we are where we are, though, aren't we? With the structure, our roads are higgledy-piggledy. It's not like Germany, where they have segregated cycling and walking parts of the pavements. We are where we are, and it seems that car drivers now that have been slowed down to 20 miles an hour, or even slower in some instances, are not the ones that are causing the majority of these incidents between bikes. These bikes are crashing into pedestrians. They seem to be the ones now that we have to teach about giving way to pedestrians.
Possibly. I think one of the issues is obviously you mentioned the electric sort of e-bikes, and they're getting sort of bigger and heavier and faster. So in the UK, they're only meant to be limited to sort of 15.5 miles an hour. But there's lots of illegal e-bikes and illegal scooters that will go much, much faster than that. So speed that they can actually travel at is also a massive issue.
But if you've got illegal cars on the road, for example, if you've got people, they are quite quickly picked up by cops who've got these number plate recognition things. I mean, I live in Shepherd's Bush, which is a traffic chaos, right, at the best of times, but I often see these so-called fat bikes, the ones with the fat tyres,
Yes.
going down the road with a kid clinging onto the back. I've seen this several times of his dad or his brother or whoever it might be. The kid has got wearing shorts and a t-shirt, going at speed. The person on the front is not wearing a helmet either. Neither of them are protected, and I just literally makes me cringe at the thought that kid. I think the child, I'd say about 5 years old, that sort of size child, and going past police cars and going past, and nothing seems to happen. And I'm like, well, that is a death waiting to happen. Why is it that cyclists get away with all this stuff?
I think it's they're hard to stop. So if you're in a car, cyclists can sort of dodge between vehicles. We have sort of far fewer roads police officers than we used to. So it is a very tricky situation. I mean, the police have had a number of operations where they've been, especially with sort of delivery drivers using illegal e-bikes, and they've done a number of sort of operations and sort of taking people off. They've also sort of charged people for not having insurance. So if you're on one of these bikes and it's overpowered, it's technically a motorbike, and for that you need insurance and stuff like that. So the police have actually used sort of different powers on some people to actually prosecute them for using the bikes, not having insurance. But I think the problem we've got is the numbers have just really increased in the last few years. I think 5 years ago it was 1 million. I think we're about 4 million now. And the daft thing is we're importing these, so we know they're illegal and they're only meant to be used in sort of certain situations. But I think when people sell them, they know how they're going to be used, and there's probably a little warning on the box somewhere. Saying,
but people know they're breaking the law, right? I mean, they do know they're breaking the law, and ignorance has never been a defence anyway. If you're breaking a law, right? So
yeah.
You know that if you're riding a fat bike at more than 20 miles an hour because you're overtaking cars with a kid clinging to the back of it, that you are breaking the law. But they don't care, because the chances of being caught or the chances of being prosecuted are so slim. So isn't it time that we actually identified bikes? Because in the Netherlands as well, they do have identifying tags on them, not a number plate as such, but it works as a number plate. So that if you are behaving recklessly or you do hit a pedestrian and hurt them, that there's at least an identifying tag that can be reported.
Yes, I think there have been proposals, but they were never really supported to go forwards. And it's do you put them on all bikes so that you can sort of show that actually mine is pedal and I'm powering it like that?
Other countries managed to do it.
Well, yes, and it's not a bad idea. I mean, the other one is mandating helmets. Cyclists, e-scooters. Your head's vulnerable. The faster you go, the more likely you are to get seriously injured. But yeah, a lot of the public don't support some of these.
No, a lot of cyclists don't support that. Not the public. I think you'll find the public support a lot of what I'm saying. It's cyclists that don't. Oh, it's not fair. I mean, I remember having an argument with somebody about helmets, saying, well, you know, and I said, yeah, but the people who don't wear them, you don't hear about the people who do wear them and are protected in a crash. So how can you possibly say that there's no numbers to support how good they are, because those people don't end up in a coma in hospital usually? So do we think it is a case of just, we can't leave the status quo, can we? And just because it feels a bit hard, a bit difficult to regulate bikes, we shouldn't just give up on that, right?
Yeah, I mean, the government set new targets for reducing killed and serious injury on the road, and an even higher target for kids under sort of 16. So mandating helmet wearing for bikes and scooters of kids under 16 and stuff would seem a very sort of sensible thing to do. And hopefully, if they're doing that, from childhood going onwards, then carrying on would be perhaps a more natural, a natural thing to do, like putting seatbelts on. Yeah. 98% of us manage to put seatbelts on now all the time. So yeah. There is things that should be done, but we just need some political will and change the legislation, and it would be a good start.
And the removal of the attitude that it's I'm going to do what I like and be arrogant about it, that many of the lycra louts have taken over. Richmond Park, I hate them. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Jamie Hassell there, who's Executive Director at the Parliamentary Advisory Council for Transport Safety. So it's all very well, they want to bring in they've got these targets. We're going to set a target. What a brilliant idea. What are you going to do about it? What are you actually going to do to achieve that target? Because I'm tired, like you are, we've got to set a target for safety. Yeah, well, tell me how you're going to do it. Anyway, that's coming up at midnight. Vincent Moss is coming up now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there. This is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock. And of course, in an hour's time, it is Talkback. It's your hour. It is dedicated completely to you and your voice. And I want to talk to you about the proposal now in the Netherlands to limit the speed that cyclists can go to 12 miles per hour. That's all cyclists, not just e-bikes. All cyclists will be limited to 12 miles per hour. They're testing it out right now. So many people in this country are calling for the same restrictions to be put on bikes here. And it is largely because of e-scooters and e-bikes and these so-called fat bikes, which you will have seen. The bike itself isn't fat, the tyres are. And they are not designed for road use, but they speed along. I don't know if you've seen them. I certainly see a lot of them around by me in Shepherd's Bush. There's loads of them. And they can get up to quite incredible speeds. Now, even e-bikes are limited. They have limiters on them, legal ones, to 15.5 miles per hour, which still seems quite fast for something you don't need a license for, right? I mean, that is a decent speed, but still. The talk is that there have been so many injuries, bike to bike or bike to pedestrian. I mean, you know, anybody who calls in and says, yeah, but what about cars? We're not talking about that, right? We are capable of having a conversation about bikes. We know about cars causing bike issues. We know that. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about bikes and people on bikes causing injury to other people on bikes, to themselves on bikes, or pedestrians who aren't on bikes, who are on their feet. So that's what we're talking about. I'm aware of the issue with cars and bikes. Done. We're talking about bikes. And I want to hear from you about your experiences as a pedestrian, as another cyclist. I mean, I gave up cycling. I was knocked off by a wing mirror, actually, on a van that came too close to me. And that was really scary. Cracked the helmet I was wearing, but thank goodness I was wearing a helmet, right? Which is why I'm an absolute advocate for them. But also because it's just not pleasant if you want to just potter around on your bike and not in lycra, and timing yourself is shaving your legs in case that adds 0.000000001 of a second on your times, idiots. They treat you like scum. Bullying, pushing you around, shouting at you. I'm done with it. I'm done with it all. Well done. You've got me off a bike. So I'm sick of it, and particularly in a busy city like London, and anywhere. If you go for a nice stroll down by the river, right? We have a lovely river. It's called the Thames. There's some lovely walkways there. Don't do it at the weekends. Don't go for a walk with your dog along the River Thames near Barnes, because they come out in their country bikes or whatever. Honestly, it's hell on legs, and they are rude and obnoxious. Keep your dog on. No, my dog is having a sniff in a puddle that might be in the middle of the pavement, but that's okay. They're allowed to do that. You racing up and down the blooming towpath is boring, rude and selfish. So I'm just sick of it. I'm genuinely fed up with it. I don't know if you feel the same way. Maybe you are a cyclist and you can explain to me your arrogant attitude. Why is it you think you own the roads? Why is it you think you have some God-given right to behave the way that you do? And like I said, go to Richmond Park. Beautiful. Used to be really peaceful. And now weekend warriors in their lycra are racing around against their own time, trying to shave not only the hairs on their legs, but half a millisecond off their own times and ruining it for everybody else. Fed up with you. Bored. Give me a call. Let me know. If I'm wrong, tell me. I honestly... you are being so selfish, and so you're making everybody else's life miserable. As car drivers, we've been pushed to go slower and slower and slower to protect you, and we are doing, because we've got license plates and we can be spotted and there's cameras everywhere. So we've slowed down to protect you. You not slowing down to protect anybody else. So I think it's time for more legislation. Give me a call. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000, calls are charged at the national rate. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222. Well, joining me now to discuss this and to have a look at the papers is the wonderful Vincent Moss, former political editor. You have an even smaller dog than I've got. When you take him for a walk, little sausage dog, it's miserable, isn't it, now with these cyclists? Would you agree?
Yeah, it's petrifying because dogs don't know what bikes are, and all they know what a car is. And I live near a park, Clapham Common, and there are cycle paths, but cyclists will cycle off the cycle paths, no regard for dogs, and it's very dangerous, but particularly dangerous for pedestrians as well. Many of them, particularly with these e-bikes, 15 miles an hour, I wish. A lot of them are unrestricted, they've taken the limits off them, and they whiz around. And as for stopping at red lights, the majority don't. Now, of course, people will probably email in and call in and say they're the good cyclists, but if you stand by any set of traffic lights for 5 or 10 minutes, probably about 6 out of 10 don't stop, 4 out of 10 do. It's mainly men who don't stop.
Men. Yeah.
Women cyclists are far better, but there's a kind of idea that they own the roads, and they seem, on the whole, very not willing to follow the laws of the road. So yeah, I think on this one you are, in my view, 100% right, Petrie. Absolutely.
Speed limits, but also it's that thing. You know, I used to walk a lot, so it's called the Two Bridge Walk. So between Barnes Bridge and Hammersmith Bridge, it's a really nice long walk. When I just had the one dog with Bailey, and it got absolutely ruined at weekends because of these, mountain bikes or whatever, and they are so aggressive and rude about you just walking. Oh, for God's sake, get out of the way, or your dog, get your dog out of the way. It's like, why can't you just slow down? I remember talking to a cyclist, I think he phoned me on a programme, and he said, well, we don't like slowing down at pedestrian crossings because that ruins our speed. We've got to start up again. And I'm like, well, that's not an excuse. What's wrong with you?
Exactly, and in shared spaces, and I think the most dangerous place where they do sadly kill pedestrians is when they're on a pavement. And you'll get some people that it's bad enough on roads when they don't stop at traffic lights and zebra crossings, but it's when they're on pavements they pose the greatest risk, because that's when people, particularly older people, who perhaps aren't as quick on their thinking and their feet as some other people, maybe look the wrong way, and then they're run over. And if you're hit by an e-bike, however young or fit you are, you're going to come off very much worse, because those are big things now, and there needs to be legislation to tackle them. Also, I think the delivery organisations have got a role to play in this, because many of the people who are whizzing around are on low wages, whizzing around because they're trying to make a buck, which is understandable, but they've removed the restrictors on their bikes, or they're going super fast. And I think it's up to the well-known delivery companies to take a bit of a role in this and ensure that their drivers are considerate and careful riders, which is almost sort of very unlikely that they're going to be, because they need to drive fast to make
the deliveries. Yeah, around where I live in Shepherd's Bush, there's sort of a housing block, if you like, for blind people to live independently. It's called Pocklington Lodge. And it's a fantastic place, but it means that there's a lot of people with diminished eyesight in my area, which is fine, right? I mean, but that means there are rules about you can't leave those rental bikes. You can't just leave them on the pavement. Or you get charged until they're in a proper docking bay. So they have to be, because they can't be left on the pavements because people are visually impaired. But these, and I've seen this happen. You can't hear these electric, but I mean, I also think electric cars are so dangerous for people with sight impaired. They're so dangerous because you just can't hear them. And I do think sounds need to be added to those cars, and I've always thought so, so that blind people can see what's coming down the road. But you get these cyclists on e-bikes shouting at people who've clearly got a white stick or clearly holding on to somebody, and there are a lot of residents around me who are sight impaired, and it makes me so angry that these cyclists have got literally no care. They're on the pavements with these people, they're on the roads where they can see them trying to cross the road, even at a zebra crossing, and you can see them whooshing past. Well, they might not hit them, but the blind person is fully aware that they were nearly hit, and that is so stressful.
Very much so, and as you said earlier, they're very unlikely to get caught.
Nobody gets caught.
Because it's impossible to track them down. Now, if a serious accident involving a car, somebody will get the number plate if you're lucky, and that person will be tracked down and hopefully prosecuted if they've committed a serious accident. That's very unlikely to happen to cyclists because they're impossible to track down because there's no
and they know
identification.
it.
Exactly.
They absolutely know it.
So, yeah, of course, there are some honest cyclists who behave well, but I'm afraid it looks, certainly if you live in London, to be a minority because they just don't stop and they don't obey the laws of the road. I wish it was different, but it's not. And it is mainly men.
They've pushed people like me off the road on a bike because it's just so unpleasant. And I'm not a pussy, right? I'm not a cat. I can stand up for myself. But they made just this relentless, boring bullying that goes on. And I know there's a lot of women cyclists who feel exactly the same way because of these lycra lads who I said that, you know, these people, they work in some office shuffling paper during the week and they shave their legs so that the hair doesn't slow them down at weekends. I mean, they're not Lance Armstrong, right? It's like you're shaving your legs. You're an idiot. What
and
are you
also,
with you?
apparently, they don't like stopping at lights because if they've got their feet in the sort of pedal holders, whatever they call the things, they have to get their feet out of them and put them down. So that's another reason why apparently they don't like stopping at traffic lights and zebra crossings, is it means they have to sort of bit like a sort of horse's stirrups. You have to take your sort of feet out.
I mean, I remember when I was a kid, we learnt to do. If you're watching me on telly, you'll know exactly what I mean. That sort of where you stand upright on your bike and you just keep moving your
bit
pedals.
Of a skill.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
Go have a cycling proficiency test or something. That's how we learnt how to do that. But I mean, these men at weekends with, you know, going down towpaths and going around Richmond Park. So unpleasant.
Yeah, and Regent's Park, where they sort of speed around the circle at Regent's Park to try and improve their times. But maybe they should bring back cycling. I had to do that. You probably did that. So if everybody did a cycling proficiency test, exactly, maybe that will get some of the worst offenders.
Well, maybe they should. I mean, look, if you have a motorbike, you have to do tests. You have to do it. Maybe kids at school, they've got to bring that back. But with adults, they always complain, these cyclists, and go, well, if you make us wear a helmet, people will stop cycling. Rubbish. Nonsense. Absolute rubbish. You know, they made us wear seatbelts. Did that stop us driving? No. So wearing a helmet will not put people off cycling. They always use that argument. If you put a speed limit on us, well, it will just discourage people from cycling. No, it won't. It will discourage you from shaving your legs at the weekends and racing around. That's what it'll do, and that's what you don't want.
Yeah, and the helmet, I just can't understand why anybody wouldn't wear one. I think that also the proliferation of Lime bikes and Forest, though virtually nobody who jumps on those, which are very convenient, wears a helmet, and that really does frighten me for them, because sort of people had got into a habit. A lot of people were buying helmets when they bought a new bike. It was part of the things you did when you went to the bike shop. You bought a new helmet, and you bought a bell or a light or whatever, and that was part of buying a bike. But now, if people are jumping on and off Lime bikes at weekends especially, and going to the pub on a Lime bike or the cinema, very few of those people have helmets, and I worry for their safety.
I do as well. My son uses Lime bikes all the time, and I bought him. He's got a really trendy helmet that I got. He never carries it.
You'd think that Lime bikes would be developed in a way that they would come with a helmet. There'd be a little pannier at the back or something.
It would get nicked, wouldn't it? That's the problem, I suppose. But there was a design I saw. It was a Japanese design. It might have been of a folding helmet that literally.
I've seen that goes flat.
Incredible.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
Yeah, and they're really, really good. I mean, a friend of mine that used to work at Charing Cross Hospital in the dietary area, so they design meals for people in recovery and stuff. And she said we used to refer to cyclists who didn't wear helmets as organ donors, because they were all, you know, they were being fed with a tube, waiting until they were switched off, basically. And she said that, you know, she would never get on a bike without a helmet, having seen that. It's just not worth it. And like I said, the numbers of people who survive being hit when they're wearing a helmet aren't there, because you don't report it. I mean, when I had my helmet split, I didn't go, because I was fine. So those numbers aren't out there. Anyway, give me a call. I want to hear from you. What's it like in the countryside as well with cyclists? Because that is a nightmare. Oh, my God. Weekend warriors again, the lycra louts. They're all out, aren't they? Poor you. Give me a call, 03444 499 1000. Stay where you are. Vincent and I'll be back to go through the papers next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you, and with me Vincent Moss, former political editor, and we're going through the papers now. Another day heavy with politics. It's the Mandy files are out. I was talking to Kevin Schofield earlier and he said that he was really quite disappointed with them because they weren't as sort of, you know, salacious as he thought they might be, or a bit rather dull, but embarrassing nonetheless for some people.
Yeah, very embarrassing, as with any sort of workplace texting and what you think is going to remain internal. If it suddenly isn't internal, it's embarrassing. And the Telegraph headline, I think, is probably the most embarrassing in terms of damage to the government over the long term, which is, there's a headline, every meeting I have is, who can we tax to pay benefits to others? And that's a text from the now Work and Pensions Minister, although he wasn't at the time, Pat McFadden. So he's quite a man with quite a dry sense of humour. And what he was basically saying is, rather than try and, from his point of view, get people off benefits and help find them jobs, instead of looking at that problem, which is very much his worldview of how you solve things, people were just looking at ways of raising taxes to pay benefits. And that feeds right into Conservative attack lines and Reform attack lines about this is a government that is interested in just hiking taxes to pay benefits. And we already know the benefits bill is going to go to about £400 million by 2030. I mean, half of that is still pensions, but half of it is... 400 billion,
yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
so,
I
yes,
mean,
400 billion, sorry,
it's
yes.
an extraordinary... But it does display who Pat McFadden is, and like you said, he could have been having a bit of a laugh, but nonetheless, that whole thing about let's tax people to pay benefits is going to resonate, isn't it? And it will be picked up. It will.
It'll be in the Conservative and Reform election leaflets. Probably it's already playing on Conservative social media, and it's reminiscent of the line that people probably remember from, I think it was 2010, when the former Labour Minister Liam Byrne left a note saying there's no, I'm afraid there's no money left, which he left in a box for his successor because he thought it would stay secret, and it was a tradition to do that at the Treasury, and it was picked up and is still noted to this day. And unfortunately that could be one of those lines that I'm sure we will see again and again in various elections.
The other embarrassment with this, I thought, was the Wes Streeting conversations with Mandy, and that is that Wes Streeting was all sort of fanboying Lord Mandelson and being a bit obsequious and oh, I love you, you're great, oh that's so funny. It was that sort of attitude, whereas Mandelson clearly was not that enamoured of Wes Streeting, because behind his back he was saying, I think he's a bit weak. You know, I mean, which, to be fair, toadying up to somebody is a sign of weakness. But that's going to be embarrassing for us, awkward for Wes Streeting, yes, particularly since he wants to be leader of the party.
Yes, exactly. Awkward for Wes Streeting and awkward for an awful lot of others, because what is clear, although there is no sort of silver bullet in terms of something that opponents of the government would hope would bring Keir Starmer down, there's an awful lot of stuff showing the extent that Peter Mandelson, who was then the US ambassador before he got sacked, our ambassador to the US, how much he was intervening and advising people right across government, making critical comments about the way that Number 10 machine was operating and how it needed an awful lot of work.
Well, and a lot of, so, like, you know, basically Keir Starmer's pathetic and he should be a bit more Trumpian, and he, you know, all of this kind of stuff.
Yes, and lacks verve and didn't have enough vim around him and the rest of it. So sort of stuff that was probably reinforcing the views that are already held by some of the ministers he was talking to, potentially. But he was also giving an awful lot of advice, some of it sought, some of it unsought, and it just shows quite how influential he was.
Yeah, I mean, he really was, but in a way that was meddling Mandelson, in the way that Mandelson thought that he was almost running the PLP, the Parliamentary Labour Party, that he was somehow bigger and better than everybody else. And that, to me, it shows more about the man, about Mandelson, as to who he thought he was.
Very much so, yes. He thought he had a huge influence, and he did have huge influence, and everyone was listening to him. Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see if there's any... I don't think there's much more to come out. That seems to be pretty much it from the government.
Until the police The third tranche, which is the ones that have been held back for legal reasons, because it might impact the case potentially against Mandelson.
Yes.
There might be some gold in there.
But that's probably a way off, isn't it? So for now, it's he's got away with it.
Yeah. The other story. This is really since the sentencing, or since the guilty verdict. This university student who was stabbed to death, and he was handcuffed, and the perpetrator, now put away for a long time for murder, had been found to have lied about everything. But the police have come out of this extremely badly. At the time, the perpetrator said, well, he was racist to me, which is still not an excuse to stab somebody multiple times. But the police handcuffed the victim, Henry Novak.
Yeah, a terrible story. In the headline on the Telegraph, police left my son to die and gave killer a meal, which is the victim's father saying what happened to his 18-year-old son, Henry Novak. And just horrendous, really. And I think the footage, some of the police body cam footage is now emerging.
It's just been released, yeah.
And just showing how dreadful it was. I mean, the good to see that the killer has been jailed for a minimum of 21 years, and I imagine many people would hope it was a lot longer than that. Quite how it got to position, although it was a ceremonial Sikh sword, just the idea that you're allowed to carry something.
But it was 8.5 inches long,
yes.
And the Sikhs can carry a smaller version of it and still be within their religious doctrine of about 1 inch long. But this again, the perpetrator was he had a huge weapons collection as well, my understanding was. But yeah, it is. What this does, again, the image of this is just so bad for the country. It's like, oh, let's cuff the white guy because the brown guy said that he was racially abused. Well, it's clear that this guy was, whether he was caused this or not, which he didn't. He's injured. What are you doing cuffing a man that's been stabbed?
Yes, exactly.
Like I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, police are also trained for these sort of emergency situations, and they would have had a duty as a first responder to make sure whoever was there who was in a life-threatening position, they should have been dealing with that as a priority. It looks as though, and there's obviously more that will emerge, and there'll be a full investigation, that they've got an awful lot of questions to answer, and it just is a terrible, terrible tragedy of an 18-year-old boy who had is a man who had his life ahead of him, taken away by this evil perpetrator who many people will think that 21 years, although it's a long time, is not long enough.
Yeah, well, he's a youngish man himself. But yeah, I mean, this is so distressing, and for the family now, to the body, like you said, the body cam footage is coming out. The family to see his last moments, and there's no, the suggestion that he could have been saved if he'd not been cuffed. But a lot of people are suggesting that he may not even have been able to have been saved. But your kid is being cuffed by the police in that state, when the perpetrator is standing there, like you said, getting a free meal and being treated like, in some way, being called a hurty name, which he wasn't, he lied about that, is justification to treat this 18-year-old like that. Yeah,
horrendous way to die.
Absolutely disgusting.
And just should never have happened, and it will be very interesting to see what now does emerge out of the inquiry that there's doubtless going to be in it. But it looks very, very bad for the police officers involved, because they are difficult situation, but they are trained to handle these situations. And
well, the knife had already gone, hadn't it? Because I think one of the parents of the perpetrator had taken the knife away. I don't think there's an excuse for what they did.
No.
I can't think of any reasonable explanation that would make this situation okay.
Yeah.
I mean, even if he had been abusive, there's nothing about the way the police handled this that I can see that is an excusable, result. There's nothing that's going to make me go, oh, well, in that case, I get it. No, none of it. None of it is.
No,
there's no reason.
Mishandled.
Yeah, completely, horrendously mishandled. There's a new drug, just in a nib at the bottom here, for 6 common cancers that shrank previously untreatable tumours. A daily pill offers hope for untreatable cancer. Isn't that extraordinary?
It is. Well, there seem to be regular medical revelations now, which is all great news,
speeding on, isn't it,
Yeah.
with cancer now? Now that they've appreciated that cancer isn't one disease, and that it is many different diseases, they seem to have completely been able to get a handle on it. I love this. I love that. I think it's absolutely amazing. The Daily Mirror. Talking of cancer, Kevin Keegan has revealed the extent of battle to fans. Now, even I know who Kevin Keegan is, right? And I've never been into football in my life. But this is a legend, isn't it? Stage 4 cancer.
Yeah, very much so. And everybody will be thinking of him and hoping that he gets the best of outcomes. But obviously, it's stage 4 cancer. It's very difficult.
Again,
for him,
depends on the cancer.
Yeah.
I mean, if it is prostate, and I don't know, I haven't read into it, there are still so many pills and treatments and you know, elongating stuff that he can have. So it depends on the cancer, I guess. But we wish him well. And the Mandelson Files makes the big front page on the Mirror. Newly released messages reveal Axed ambassador's extraordinary treachery behind Keir Starmer's back and further undermine the PM's position.
And critically, he's not handing over. Peter Mandelson is not handing over. He's refusing to hand over his private phone, which the Mirror asks begs the question what is left to hide. So could be quite a lot more.
Well, at least he didn't claim to have it stolen, like so many people appeared.
Well, that's right. It seems to be a second stolen phone now, doesn't
Yeah.
there? So, yes.
It's like amazing. If you know Peter Mandelson, hold on to your phone. Apparently, it's a thing. The Daily Express, again, going with this story. I imagine that everybody will, because people have just been poring over was it 1,500 pages?
Yes.
All afternoon since they were released. So everybody's writing about it. Every meeting I have is who can be taxed to pay benefits. As we said, that will keep coming up. And on the other side, the fabulous photograph of Hannah Waddingham, who I have to admit that I have got a massive girl crush on. I absolutely love this woman.
I'll be honest, I hadn't heard of her until I started watching Ted Lasso, in which she was excellent.
Yeah,
so,
because she was a West End Wendy, wasn't she?
Yes.
She was a West End star. So I vaguely knew of her, but in Ted Lasso she's extraordinary. But she is just the most exquisite creature. I mean, she's 6 foot something tall, but the most beautiful. I really desperately have a crush on her.
And multi-talented, isn't she? Good
She's
singer
incredible.
as well as
She's
a great
incredible.
actress. Yeah, so she can do everything.
All of the West End performers now, she's their goddess because she broke out of the West End and has now become a major Hollywood star. I mean, they're all lining up to use her. She's been in all sorts of movies now and will continue to do so. And she said the other day, she said, I'm doing everything, I'm grabbing everything because I don't know when it's going to end. And I'm loving it all. So I just think she's extraordinary. And
Great, especially when there's that obsession with youth, and she sort of bucks that trend as well.
Yeah,
so.
but I mean, just look at her.
Yeah, it looks
She
amazing.
is absolutely gorgeous. I really am now sounding like I've switched sides. I haven't, but do you know, she is just something else. She's a force to be reckoned with, I tell you that. Let's take a quick break, and Vincent and I'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you and with me, the wonderful Vincent Moss. Who's a former political editor. Thank you for joining me. Now, The Sun, in fact, we have to be honest, don't we? I think all the papers, blah, 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 all about Mandelson, dossier bombshell. I feel they're hyping this up more than it deserves, really.
I think so. I think what had probably happened is the newspapers were all expecting this to be a bombshell.
Yeah.
And they'd reserved all the space on the front
really
pages, and it wasn't quite as good as they'd hoped. I mean, if you're interested in Westminster and what goes on there, fascinating, very interesting, very important. If you're less interested, less important, because of course, let's not forget that while the police investigation is still pending, Peter Mandelson was the former our ambassador in the US. He's no longer, he was sacked a long time ago, and this is really sort of now at the level of the various text messages that he exchanged with government ministers and what it tells us about relationships with ministers and Keir Starmer. And what it tells us basically is he didn't rate Keir Starmer too much and he didn't think number 10 was working that well. Well, that's a view probably quite widely shared by quite a lot of people, not least many people in the Labour Party.
Yeah, and I do sometimes worry that people, media, journalists, get a little bit too Westminster focused and forget actually this is not a conversation they're having around the water cooler or while they're frying their bacon in the morning, right? It's just not, oh, did you catch that Mandelson dossier? I don't think anybody's having that conversation.
No, they're not least because if it was about a serving minister, then I think they'd be fascinated or more interested because will he or she be sacked? But Peter Mandelson's already gone. He's departed the scene. He's an ex-ambassador, an ex-minister and an ex-player.
And he's been around for years and been sacked twice before, and we know he's a bit of a toad and all of that. It's not new. No,
the only element that, has yet to play out from his point of view is where the police investigation ends.
Yeah.
The bigger story
That's the interesting
exactly,
bit for
and the bigger story is, I think, what happens to the government and Keir Starmer and how long will he be Prime Minister for? And Peter Mandelson was a player in that plot, but no longer.
No, exactly. He's really yesterday's news until and if there is a court case. So, you know, but The Sun has gone with the Welfare Party and the shock tax for benefits complaint by Minister. The Guardian, Mandelson files reveal security briefings before vetting passed. If you were minded to appoint me, I would make sure you never regret it.
Yes, well, that was the line that he said in a letter, a note to David Lammy, who was Foreign Secretary at the time, and it's quite a compelling thing to write in a note to somebody until it unravels the way it spectacularly did.
Yeah, stick with me. Nothing bad can possibly happen. And peace talks in peril after Israel's Lebanon push. I mean, I am amazed it's taken this long because that so-called ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon is an absolute farce. I mean, what a joke. By ceasefire, what do we mean? It means ceasing fire. It means stopping shooting at each other and bombing each other, and neither party has stopped.
No, and it's not only not stopped, but Israel has ramped up its ingressions into Lebanon. So, but every day the story seems to change because almost every day President Trump comes out and says we're on the brink of a deal, and every day Iran seems to say no, you're not. And it seems to go on, and that reflects the price of petrol and the price of the stock market in the US, because every time Trump says a deal's close, the markets rally, and then every time Iran says the deal's not close, the markets drop and oil prices go up. So very, very hard to know exactly what is going on. But of course, Iran have said that any deal must go hand in hand with
They've said that from day one.
Exactly, with assaults in Lebanon. So all of these things have to happen at the same time, and at the moment, Trump's talking about how the deal's nearly happening, and it just doesn't seem to be that way.
No, you know what? I mean, Iran says it will suspend peace talks with the US in protest against the Israeli offensive. And I think Iran understands America better than America understands Iran. And they know in Tehran that Donald Trump has got the midterms coming up. And the longer this drags on, and the longer the very high gas prices in America, petrol prices are, this is a really bad thing for Donald Trump. They know that, and I think they're waiting him out.
Well, they do.
I think they are playing him and going, you've got your midterms coming up. You are going to be absolutely crushed if fuel is at $10 or $12 a gallon, when he was saying that it was $1.99 only a few months ago. they are. That's what I think they're doing. I think they're going, well, we're not in a hurry. We don't care.
Yes, he's the one running against the clock with his opinion, with his poll ratings
crashing through
terrible
the floor.
lows.
Yeah.
And of course, Iran has switched off the internet, so they have a population that doesn't know what's going on.
And also, they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't have elections, right? they don't care about people dying in the street. They don't care. They really don't. So they can you know, as bad as Iran is at the moment with you know, finances and the blockade and all of that, they're not looking for votes. So
and Trump has to come up with something that resembles a win, whether that's a deal on the nuclear material, or whether that's the reopening of the Hormuz Strait, which was already open before he started this. Yes.
Yeah, and he claims he has full control over. And you know, all of these things. I think that Tehran is playing a game that I would play if I was them. I mean, I have no support for the regime in Tehran whatsoever, but they know their enemy better than their enemy knows them. I think that's the situation that we're looking at in that case. The FT. Let's have a look. Anthropic tests Wall Street appetite for AI labs by filing for $1 trillion+ listing. Good heavens. I mean, this is really interesting because a lot of people are saying with AI that AI at the moment is overselling. It's overselling what it actually can do at this stage, and that the bubble could burst. So if you're looking at Anthropic trying to go onto the market at $1 trillion, I mean, I think that can only speed up that crash. That's a huge number.
It is. I mean, the FT says its valuation has risen 15-fold in 15 months, which is some going. And tech stocks in the US are still pretty much soaring, and they've been tipped to fall for a while yet, and the bubble is expected to burst, and it doubtless will burst at some point, but it hasn't happened yet. And the amount of money involved in some of these tech companies is incredible.
But AI is over-promising and under-delivering at the moment. It is saying that it can do all these things. And look, it is miraculous. It is great. And I'm sure in the future it will do it. But there's only so much leeway you get with jam tomorrow, particularly on the markets. They want jam today. And they're looking for jam today. They're not looking for jam tomorrow. When the jam comes tomorrow, we'll give you the money then. But do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's the markets are brutal, so I think that they're looking at that. I mean, that would be a huge deal. Oh, just for those of you who want to know, the former England captain and manager Kevin Keegan, he has been diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer, which is really sad. So we wish you, stage 4. We wish you excellent treatment, and who knows with all these new drugs that are coming along now. But we wish you well. Right, the I paper, again going big with Mandelson files, reveal how the PM's authority crumbled. Russia's new depravity, wrapping booby traps in rags to drop on Ukraine. They're desperate, Russia. They really are desperate because Ukraine is pushing back. It's regaining ground. It's now bombing 800 kilometres into Russia.
Exactly, and I think the speed with which the Ukrainian drone development is progressing and what they can do with drones is advancing more and more.
It's incredible.
And it's a war that Russia keeps feeding its young men into, who are dying in huge
like a
numbers.
Sausage
and
machine,
Ukraine is winning this kind of tech battle and managing increasingly to kill Russian forces without having to go near the front line some of the time because of the efficiency of the weapons they've got.
The weapons and they are creating these weapons like almost like little remote control cars that drop off landmines.
Yeah.
So they pootle along and they drop a landmine and then pootles on a bit further, drops a landmine. People not having to go anywhere near those. I mean, Ukraine is just their drone technology and they're just their other technology because they're thinking outside the box. Is extraordinary.
Yeah,
they're now helping us to develop an underwater drone.
Absolutely, and it's changed the way warfare will be carried out forever now, really.
Yeah,
and other countries
really
are now learning from this. It's a terrible human price that's been paid in many ways, but there's countries
the same
like
with Iran.
Yeah, where we're learning new things, and now people are probably thinking, well, do we need to spend tens of billions on aircraft carriers and warships and large planes and very expensive planes which can get taken out by a £40,000 drone? Actually, no, we need to build fleets of drones.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting. I mean, we'll always need the big infrastructure, but it will not be it will cease to be successful without that drone technology. And the fact that Ukraine now is the leading expert in drone technology, and like I said, they're helping us build drones that will go along all the pipelines that we've got under the water to protect them from Russian submarines. I mean, it is mind-blowing, really. Like you said, it's a terrible price to pay for but that's what happens, isn't it? That mother, you know, the mother of invention, necessity being the mother of invention, that they've had to come up with this. The Independent, Mandelson verdict on Starmer, bereft and beleaguered, and Serena Williams returning to tennis, aged 44, ancient.
Well, it is for a tennis player, but yeah.
It is. Have we got Wimbledon soon? It's this month, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a couple of weeks away. I think the qualifiers are in late June, and
you like Wimbledon, don't you?
I do. I'd be very interested to see if Serena Williams does come back. It's rumoured she might come back in the doubles. However brilliant she is, she wouldn't be able to come back in the singles.
But we'll see. I'm not a fan of Wimbledon, but I know that it'll be taking over screens and conversations for weeks on end. And the dinosaur exhibition that will make you want to save our oceans. I love a dinosaur exhibition. I spent much of my childhood at the Natural History Museum.
They're great.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Have you seen the gardens outside the Natural History Museum now?
No.
Oh, they're amazing. They've got this sort of jungle gardens outside the front of the Natural History Museum with dinosaurs in there, and dinosaur skeletons and fully covered dinosaurs.
Sounds brilliant.
It's absolutely mesmerising. You drive past that in your car and you just go, that is incredible. It's beautiful. It's really good. They're very smart. Yeah, they're very good. Right, the Metro, Mandy, hire me and you'll not regret it. Yeah, what else? And the Daily Mail as well. Labour's poisonous puppet master and a £1 million cover-up. The 1,500 new pages are a sea of Tipex, but they still expose a malign, backbiting peer for whom Starmer sabotaged his own career by making him US ambassador. And that's the thing, isn't it? That Keir Starmer did give him the job. He signed it off, and all the time this snake is stabbing him in the back.
Yeah, and
again, it makes Starmer look weak.
And the Mail's pointed to the point a lot of the documents are redacted, so some of the people named in it, it's hard to work out who they are because they've been sort of Tipexed out, as it puts it. But as the I think it was the iPaper said earlier, there is no smoking gun there that really takes the story on to the next level. No. There's nothing that will force the resignation of the Prime Minister.
No, I think he'll be quite relieved at these. I don't think they're going to do anything to him.
Yes, it just reinforces what people already knew, which is that Peter Mandelson was at the heart of briefing and was causing all sorts of problems. But yeah, it doesn't tell us anything that we probably didn't expect to.
No. But it is interesting when you find out that someone you thought liked you didn't. I mean, that is a punch in the gut, isn't it? I mean, for Keir Starmer to go, oh, I thought he was my mate. Because you see them hanging out together, right? They were friendly, but clearly Mandelson was stabbing him in the back and was being...
But he's a gossipy person by nature, and I think that a bit like perhaps maybe all of us are in our friendship circles, that there are moments when we're a bit gossipy and a little bit mean about other people. It doesn't necessarily mean we don't like them all of the time. And also friendships change, so one minute you like somebody and 1 minute you don't, so there'll be bits of it that people may sympathise with.
I think I would be gutted if I found out that people who I trusted were talking bad about me behind my back. I'd be really
politics,
upset.
And I think, you know, it was the old cliche: if you want a friend, get a dog in politics. You know, so,
yeah,
I mean, they're all a bit backstabby, aren't they, in that world?
That is true. Yeah, I suppose they're all a bit like that. But I mean, and also, they should have known better with Mandelson, because, like I said, he's been around a long time, and everybody's known what the cut of his jib is.
Well,
right?
Everybody says that now, but at the time they wanted somebody that could cosy up to Trump and was very good at trade deals, and people sort of bought that bit of the prospectus, and then now as everybody's remembering the other bit where he got sacked twice before, and
well, they thought they did think he could talk Trump. That is true, and that I don't think that is a good reason. In fact, that's probably the worst reason to appoint somebody into that job. Let's take a break. Back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie with you and with me, Vincent Moss, former political editor. The Times newspaper again, Labour only asks who can be taxed to pay benefits. So that, as we pointed out, that is going to be the headline that everybody's going to use. 1 in 5 young adults out of work by next year. I mean, these numbers keep getting worse and worse, don't they?
Yeah, they're terrible. I mean, we this is the follow-on from the sort of Alan Milburn report looking at the problem, the former Labour cabinet minister, and it's just that shocking figure of a million 18 to 24-year-olds not in employment.
1.25 million now.
Yeah, it just keeps rising.
Rocketing.
And I think that with the advent of AI taking a lot of entry-level jobs and just the cutbacks that have been in most people, I think, got their first jobs, even whatever they do now, in retail or in hospitality, and they've been two sectors that have been very hard hit in terms of entry-level jobs and rising national insurance.
I had a job in a cafe, I think I was 14, 15, Saturday weekend job. Those don't seem to really exist anymore either.
They don't, because it's so expensive, relatively expensive from an employer's point of view, to take those people on. So it's really, really hard for an awful lot of, I mean, and I'm sure we all applied for a few jobs, but some of the people who've been interviewed recently have talked about applying for hundreds
and not even
jobs.
Getting feedback, not even getting a reply. And then their confidence goes. And if you've got no confidence, then you're not even going to apply for jobs, and then you're stuck on a benefit cycle. And they're saying that 70% of those on those benefits are on them still 10 years later. And it's not really surprising when you consider the guts it takes to apply for a job and then to go for an interview and all of those things. And if your confidence has been shattered by people not bothering to get back to you or not even replying, I think that is understandable.
It's terrible. I mean, it's bad enough if you applied for a dozen jobs or a couple of dozen jobs, but there are so many people that applied for hundreds and hundreds of jobs, not even received responses, as you say, and just no clue. And actually, people with really good grades and really well qualified for what they're doing, and some who've taken the advice to do a bit of charity work or do a bit of volunteering, and they think, well, hang on, I've got good grades, I've done some charity work, I've done some volunteering, and I still can't get a break, I still can't get a job in a coffee shop. And it's just, and that's what gives a lot of people the confidence to go out in the world of work.
Absolutely.
And understand how to interact with people and the rest of it. So it's a real existential sort of crisis for young working people, and it's very hard to see how that's going to be fixed.
I know, but I mean, it's fixed. It has to be, because this is not sustainable. I mean, the more that this happens, the more that we'll see unfettered immigration to take jobs that these youngsters aren't getting, and a lot of it is the minimum wage as well that's been raised, and the national insurance things it's a false economy. And Rachel Reeves has to take responsibility for a lot of this and just say, I made a mistake. Because the money I'm making from national insurance, I'm paying straight back in benefits to young people.
Exactly.
It doesn't work.
And a lot of employers are saying there's got to be a rowing back on the minimum wage, because why would you take on somebody who's untested and a risk if you've got to pay them roughly the same money as you've got to pay a 25-year-old who may have had 2 or 3 jobs?
Absolutely, there has to be incentive for that, and they really need.
And it's same with apprentices, where their wages in a good way have gone up, good for them, but it makes it harder for employers to take on apprentices. So the main thing is to drive growth, and a lot of the recent measures don't seem to be doing that as successfully as the government hoped when it came in.
No, I think it's time for the Chancellor to actually do some maths, and not on the back of a fag packet, to look at the costs, the money she's making compared to the money she's losing. And it's the same actually with the VAT on private schools, that now, I was reading today that so many schools now, mid-level schools, not just the sort of flaky private schools, but the bigger ones, are having to close their doors now and pushing all those children back onto the state education system, which is buckling at the knees. And they can't afford it. So again, she's got to do the maths properly and say, well, look, the VAT increase, yes, it was giving me this money, but now it's costing me this money because all those children now have to go to state school.
Yeah, there is a problem though with private school fees. They have gone up far
massively
higher than the rate of inflation, and a lot of private schools now sustained largely by overseas pupils, which is a huge market. And some of those schools actually have found a way to diversify, which is they're opening branches to their schools in the Middle East and in Southeast Asia and other places, and they're expanding that way. But one of the schools have got themselves to blame in one respect, the private schools, because the fees have gone up way above the levels of inflation for the last 10 or 15 or 20 years. And certainly the VAT thing hasn't helped, but it's been a contributing factor to a lot of them closing recently.
They are having to close down, and all those kids have to be educated somewhere. Right, let's have a look. What else have we got? The Daily Star. Keegan. I knew I wouldn't be walking alone. Kevin Keegan says he's pleased that the doctor treating his cancer is a Liverpool fan, as the former Anfield striker is a hero at the club. And again, we wish you well with your treatment. The Nibs. Airbnb out of control. Airbnb has been ordered to tackle out-of-control renting in London's West End, where thousands of properties are subject of being unlawfully let to visitors. I wonder what's unlawful about.
I think there's a maximum number of days they're allowed to be let out for sometimes. So if you've got a flat and you're subletting it, you can rent it, I think maybe it's 90 or 100 days a year. And a lot of people are just, especially in some of these big blocks in West London and other places, that they're renting out loads and loads of flats all the time, and people who still live there get quite annoyed because there are just people coming and going all the time. They're often held, but you use it for a weekend stag do or a party and things like that. So if you're a sort of permanent tenant, as it were, it's quite irritating to be living alongside.
Yeah, no,
a
I
party
get that.
house.
There was a house on the street that I used to live on that was rented out, and it seemed to be full every weekend with Australians, backpackers. You know, the one person would rent it and then hand it over to other, and I loved it. I didn't mind them at all. They were always partying and drinking beer and having a great time, and I just thought good luck to them. But a lot of the neighbours were really upset about it.
Yeah, and some cities have really clamped down on it. New York's clamped down massively on them. I think Barcelona might be another place, because the people who live there all the time have been quite unhappy either about the noise or just about the sort of constant comings and goings. Because if you're on holiday, you're obviously going to behave differently in a flat or a house than if you live there all the time.
Yeah, definitely. So that's me with the papers. What have you got?
Well, I thought quite an interesting story in the Telegraph. One of the unforeseen consequences about the war in Iran at the moment. We know about all the petrol prices and things like that, but did we know that children's birthday parties are now affected by the war in Iran because there is a shortage of helium? And the Telegraph says celebrations risk losing their sparkle after stalemate in the Iran conflict risks a helium balloon crunch hitting Britain, because apparently Qatar produces a third of the world's helium and they can't ship any of it because of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. So now there's a helium crisis to add to all the other crises. So and it's not just party balloons. There's a
lot of medical treatments.
Exactly, medical stuff, deep sea diving, welding, medical imaging devices. So yet another reason why Trump has got to find a way of breaking the deadlock in the peace talks, because a lot of the things, the supplies were there and there was a stockpile, but now, as we've seen with jet fuel, we're running out of some of these things, and the latest one is air going out of the balloon sales because of the war, because there just literally isn't enough helium to go around.
Because there's all of these knock-on effects, aren't there, to all these things. I mean, we've got to get it sorted. Well, Trump's got to get it sorted out. But he says he controls it. He's fully in control. Anything else, just quickly?
Yeah, very quick one. Rosamund Pike, a brilliant actress.
Oh, I love her.
This is she's in this fantastic show in London called Inter Alia, and she's berated an audience member because right at the end of the play, the sort of devastatingly emotional conclusion, she sees somebody in the audience texting, which is pretty unforgivable. She's very upset by it, and she tells the audience that they'd let her down, and she'd given her all in the performance. It runs for 100 minutes without an interview. It's supposed to be brilliant. Somebody's sitting in the audience texting, and this is the sort of latest saga where people are on their phones.
It's absolutely disgusting, isn't it? I saw that story, and she said, I'm not going to point you out, but I hope you're a doctor, and that was really important, because you broke the rules. You know, I'm giving you everything and you're texting.
It literally
It's
has
so
to be that
rude.
level, doesn't it?
Yeah,
That somebody,
it
life
really
or death.
Why would you do that?
It's crazy. And people who do that, I mean, it's bad enough in films and in other places like that, but when you're at the theatre or the opera or something
And
like that...
it's so expensive to go there as well.
Exactly. And so hard to get a ticket for that particular show. So whoever did that,
Oh,
I
I can't bear it.
feel
Other
guilty.
people. This is why I'm a recluse. This is why I stay at home with my dogs. Vincent, thank you very much indeed. Vincent Moss, former political editor. Stay where you are. It's over to you next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. It is Petrie here with you for the next hour, and this is your hour. It's the Talkback hour. So it is time for you to do exactly that. And I have got a right one on this morning, a real bee in my bonnet about this topic, and that is cyclists. Because it is getting worse and worse and worse and worse every single week in London with cyclists. They are selfish, rude, aggressive, thoughtless. There's lots of other words, but they're swear words. I can't use that. Anyway, you get my point. I'm sick of them. I genuinely am. I am fed up to the back teeth of the idea that they are somehow to be forgiven for everything they do because they think they're saving the planet by cycling around. Well, there's plenty of people in electric cars these days. I'm not one of them because I can't afford one. But you may be saving the planet, but you are making it a much more miserable place to be. So I want to talk to cyclists. I want to talk to people who feel like I do about cyclists, and that is that it is time, it is over time now that these bikes were better controlled. I'm talking push bikes and electric bikes, because push bikes are literally pushing cyclists like me off the road, people who potter, people who wander, people who not in any great hurry, basket on the front, probably going for a coffee somewhere, you know, just poodling along, and you get nothing but aggressive men, it is men, shouting at you, having a go at you, just pushing you out the way, pushing you into the curb, pushing you into the road. For whatever reason, they think they've got to be there in a split second. I literally don't know, but I am fed up of it. I'm also fed up of cyclists in parks, like just my local parks, Ravenscourt Park, they're just, the pavements there are for everybody. They're for people who are wandering along. They're for people who've got a dog that's having a sniff and get off the lead, just, you know, gently going from side to side, because that's what they do. And you've got cyclists whoosh, straight down the middle, shouting at you, shouting at get a dog on a lead. I'd rather put you on a lead, mate. God, they're rude. And they're just making everybody's life miserable. And yet nobody says anything and nobody does anything because you can't find them. They're also causing death and injury to pedestrians. And yes, I know, you know, if you want to have people who are cycling, go, what about cars? We are not talking about the relationship between cyclists and cars. Not this morning. We have done so many times. We are talking now about the relationship between cyclists and cyclists and cyclists and pedestrians, right? That is the framework of this conversation. So do not for a millisecond think that I want to hear about cars, because I don't. We've talked about it a lot. This is not the frame of this conversation. This conversation is about cyclists and the danger that cyclists impose on each other and on pedestrians. The car thing we've talked about many times and will do again. But the framing of this, cyclists causing danger, right? Good. Because they're not only causing danger to each other and to pedestrians, but they're also, like I said, making other people's lives miserable. Miserable. Richmond Park. Why? Oh, we got to test myself against the time that I did last Sunday. Really? Who cares? No one. Yeah, wearing your lycra and shaving your legs just in case that little bit of hair slows you down. No. You look ridiculous. I'm sorry, but you do. Who do you think you are? You're not an Olympian. No one cares. I bet your wife or your girlfriend, I managed to do, can I use some of your wax? Oh, slowed down a bit. I think the hair's growing back. I mean, what kind of conversation do you have about that? It's pathetic. Yeah. You're not 14, you know, whatever. But I want to talk to you about cyclists. I want to talk about why they behave this way. I want to talk about your experiences of them as a pedestrian or even as another cyclist. So do give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Those calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. Delighted to say we've got a new caller first, who is Norrie, who is in Carluke in Scotland. Good morning, Norrie.
How are you, Petrie?
How lovely to talk to you. How are you?
Yeah, lovely to talk to you. I love watching your show.
Oh,
I'm so happy to be on air at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah, first on the block there, Norrie. So tell me, do you share my opinion of cyclists?
I do. It frustrates the life out of me. I live in a small town near Hamilton in Motherwell. I'm from Paisley originally, but what I find is in the country roads, I'm always stuck behind cyclists. Oh. My friend's a cyclist, which I get. He goes to Spain and France and all that with his bike. But what frustrates me is they always open up and take over the whole road, and you're stuck there for like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. It's like getting stuck behind a tractor these days, isn't it? It's more common. And they cluster.
Yeah, exactly. And there's, you know, and I was like, there's no paid road tax and something like that, you know. But on top of that as well, I mean, in Glasgow especially, where I sometimes go to work at Edinburgh Road. We've got Edinburgh Road, which is a major road in Glasgow. And they've actually built a cycle lane, and they've cut the road down from 2 lanes down to 1. So the traffic's actually built up because they've built a cycle lane, and it's a nightmare because there's hardly anybody on cycle lane.
No, I know. And the worst thing is in London, because we've got so many cycle lanes, and like you said, they have completely squashed the amount of cars that can be on the road. But they don't even go in the cycle lanes, because these lycra louts who think they're, I don't want to be in a cycle lane because there are cyclists like Petrie Hosken in there, they're going too slowly. It's like we spent millions building that for you. Get in there. There should be a law that says if there's a cycle lane, you absolutely have to use it.
Yeah, and I'm okay if you're a cyclist and you're out with some friends, I'm quite happy for them to stay in single file.
We were taught, my cycling proficiency, because I'm quite old, we were taught that if a car comes along, you had to go single file.
Yeah, but no, they take over the whole lane.
No.
And then they block it. I mean, they branch out. Instead of being single file, they branch out and take over the whole lane, and you're there for like 5 miles an hour.
Oh, you know what? There's so much about them that just really irritates me. Like you said, when I was younger, the correct way to cycle is that if you can't cycle in tandem, if there's a car coming, you have to pull in front of each other. And I believe that is still the law. I believe that's still a rule.
I don't know.
But they don't obey that. No, and they're going up the hill as well. Oh my God, when I get stuck behind a couple of cyclists going up a hill and they're going really, really slowly, and I just think, why can't you just pull over?
Yeah,
they never pull over.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, Petrie, is we're not Holland. We're not Holland.
No.
You know, we try to be Holland, but we're not Holland. You know, we're not all. I get a lot of rain in Scotland. We're not going to get on a bike and go somewhere.
No. What about these lycra louts, though? They think they're Lance Armstrong.
Do you know what I mean? I think that's my biggest bugbear is we're not Holland. We're trying to be Holland. We're trying to be green. We're trying to get on your bike instead of taking the car. But we're not Holland. We are not Holland. We're Scotland. We're Britain. We've got a lot of rain, and I'm sorry the weather.
And we've got small, windy roads.
Seasons. Yeah, and we get 4 seasons in one day.
Just the 4? I mean, in Scotland, I think it's up to about 8 seasons in one day, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
But what is it about these cyclists that they get in their cars, they put their bikes on the roof rack, and then they drive to country roads, and then they
think. Yeah, they think, I'm sorry, I was talking to you, they think they own the road. They think they own the road.
Do you think they should be speed capped?
I think they should be taxed.
Yeah, I do. I think they should be identifiable as well.
And electric bikes and electric scooters, they should be taxed.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I think so. I think I want to make their lives as miserable as they make my life. That's what I want.
I've nothing against keeping fit, getting a bike, going. You know, during the pandemic, I bought a bike for me and the missus, and we went on it once, and the missus went, "No, I'm not doing this. I'd rather just stay in the house." But what I'm trying to say is, I think it should be taxed. You should be taxed, just like you're using the roads, just like a car user.
Yeah. And also, we spend a lot of money on cycle lanes, and we spend a lot of money on, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And not to mention the NHS for all the head injuries they get because they don't wear helmets.
Well, Petrie, how would it help the potholes as well? It maybe help the potholes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we should make cyclists fill potholes on 100%. A weekend instead of cycling.
No, he's got to phone me tomorrow and fall out and play.
Yeah, I mean, what do you say to your friend? Is he a lycra lout as well? Does he shave his legs?
Well, he goes to Spain and holiday with his bike and takes it on the plane and goes all these trips, you know, and I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, why don't you do it with me? And I'm like, no, I can't be bothered.
You're not going to be waxing your legs, are you, Norrie?
No chance.
No chance.
Well, I have waxed my legs for charity, but that's about it.
Yeah. Does he wax his, do you know?
I think he does. Yeah.
Oh, what is wrong with them? I mean, what difference is it going to make? I mean, literally, Lance Armstrong and all the other professionals do it because it literally shaves off like a trillionth of a second.
Nothing. And nothing. And then he's got all the gear. He's got the Go camera. The camera with the Go. He's got all that. And I'm like, oh my God! Honestly, seriously.
Seriously, I mean, and that's the trouble, is they do take themselves incredibly serious, right? I bet he does.
I know, he does. And I'm like, okay, that's your life. That's what you want to do. You do it,
Just don't get in front of Norrie's car or Petrie's car.
No, what gets me, though, is going into city centre, into Glasgow, and they've cut it down to one lane because of the cycle lane. That does... Yeah, it does my head in.
Yeah, it does my head in as well, because in London what they've had to do is take up a lot of the bus lanes in order to give, probably in Glasgow as well, to give the cyclists that lane.
It actually builds up the traffic.
Yeah.
It builds up the traffic.
Because then you've also got the buses now and stopping and letting pedestrian, people on and off, and then that affects us. But we've got license plates, we pay tax, we pay an extortionate amount of money for our cars. Yeah. And yet we are treated like the scum of the earth.
100%, Becky, 100%.
We've got to start a political party, Norrie. So
I think so.
Something to get rid of, get these cyclists back in their box. It's lovely to talk to you. I hope your friend's still talking
to you. You take care, Petrie. Thank you. It's lovely to be on.
Lots of love to you. And I hope your mate's still talking to you, Norrie, at the end of that. Right, I'm going to take a quick break, but I will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and a good morning to you. This is Talk Back, and we're talking about cyclists, and we're talking about how reckless riding and the rise of e-bikes have now forced the Netherlands, of all countries, to trial a 12 miles per hour restriction. And there's growing calls for tougher laws in the UK too. And I completely back any tougher law for cyclists in this country. Dutch authorities are now trialling this in cycle lanes in Amsterdam and Houten to curb the issue of accidents and reckless riding, as the increase in injuries amongst riders and the pedestrians they career into. So this isn't about, I've said this until my face is as blue as this shirt that I'm wearing. I am not talking about the relationship between cars and bikes. I'm talking about the relationship between bikes and bikes and bikes and pedestrians, because the number of injuries and deaths and incidents is on the rise between bikes and pedestrians and bikes and bikes. And a lot of people are saying, right, it is time now to limit this whatever attitude it is with cyclists, with certain cyclists who believe that they can do whatever they like, whenever they like, to whomever they like, because they're not identifiable, right? Nobody knows who. I mean, there was a dog walker woman that I knew, because she died. And I knew her through just dog walking, right? You'd have a chat. And she was hit catastrophically by a bike, riding on the pavement, just a push bike, who was a hit and run, ran off. And she smashed her face, she broke her arm, she had a heart issue anyway. But there is no doubt that the accident or the incident that happened, because it wasn't an accident, it was just he hit her and drove off, and as far as I'm concerned that is a deliberate act, but because he didn't stop, definitely played a part in her early death, definitely. So that's somebody I know, and it's just people being hit by cyclists all the time, and cyclists being bullied by other cyclists who think, oh my God, you're too slow. I wish I could swear, because I so nearly did then, as to what my response used to be. I don't cycle anymore because it's miserable. It's just miserable. It's a horrible experience that has been created not by car drivers but by other cyclists, usually men. In fact, in my experience, 100% men bullying other people on bikes. So also, like I said earlier, in where I live, there's independent living for blind people who are vision impaired. And so we're all aware of that around the neighbourhood, right? I've been in that neighbourhood for a very long time. And alter or at least are aware of people that might step out or whatever. And cyclists just don't care. I've seen somebody with a stick on one of the zebra crossings on my road who is clearly trying to cross the road, and a cyclist will just whoosh straight past them, and the blind person doesn't know, can sense that something's just whooshed past them, and it's traumatic. They don't know what it is, they don't know why it is. You've also got cyclists on pavements as well, with people who are sighted, vision impaired, and it's just, then there's no thought. There's not an inkling, not a moment where these cyclists think about the impact of what they're doing on the people around them, let alone care, let alone probably even know there's vision impaired people around. But it's disgusting, because it shouldn't matter. You should just be courteous to other people. So I am absolutely in full support of a speed limit on cyclists, if only to hack them off. Nigel is in Doncaster. Good morning, Nigel.
Good morning, Petrie.
What do you reckon?
Well, I think there should be a caveat on this, because I'm a cyclist. I've got an e-bike. It is speed restricted. I mean,
is it 15 and a half? 15 and a half? Yeah. Okay.
Right. So, but that said, I agree there are a lot of cyclists out there who, they're thugs on wheels.
But why? Why are they like that? I mean, this is. I've got no problem with e-bikes. I've got no problem with people who have got courtesy and thought for other people, right? But there are so many that don't, and the way they behave on paths near the river, if I'm trying to take a little stroll down there, or even in the local park, it's just horrible.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, like you said, these big wheel things do about 40 mile an hour. They go whizzing up the high street and all sorts. I think bikes should be taxed, pay a road tax. I mean, I'm a cyclist. And
you wouldn't mind paying it?
No, £30 a year, something like that. If every cyclist in the country paid £30 a year, all right, maybe put an age limit on it, because you don't want to tax the kids going to school or whatever. But, yeah, helmets compulsory, high vis compulsory.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, there's lots to be done. I mean, I cycle on the roads, so I know what the state of the roads are like. I mean, as drivers, you know that, and that money could go straight into paying for the cycle lanes. Could be paying for the pothole repairs.
I agree, and I don't understand this sort of free for all attitude that this light, you know, we're saving the planet almost. It's that attitude, and it really annoys me.
Well, it started with Boris, didn't it?
Yeah, well, he used to pretend to cycle everywhere, didn't he?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Because of the woke green element, they won't tax it, and I think that's stopping it.
Yeah, because they're saying, oh, it will put people off cycling. No, it won't.
Not responsible people, it won't.
No. All these lycra louts.
I mean,
their bikes cost more than my car, probably.
Yeah, I mean, you do get. I mean, in cars, you get out in the countryside, you get teams of people cycling together.
I feel so sorry for people in little villages and stuff, because you get all this lycra rushing through. I mean, without a thought.
It's like the Tour de France on a Sunday afternoon, isn't it? It's like,
yeah. I mean, it used to be much cooler, didn't it? It used to be motorbike gangs, which was quite cool. And they also didn't slow you down. But now it's cyclists. Everywhere you go.
It is, yeah. But I agree. They should, speed restrictions, bans on, And
what about being identifiable? Because, even in Holland or in the Netherlands, they've got identifying tags on their bikes.
Yeah,
so,
well, I was just thinking that, you can tag people, you can tag bikes, can't you?
Yeah. And the police should be able to know who's cycling, these bikes.
Yeah,
but it's just too difficult. They just won't want to do it because it's too difficult. But it's like people are being hurt. They're being killed by cyclists.
Well, what's the price of a man or a woman's life?
Yeah.
Or a child, I mean, yeah, I see it every day, cycling to work, or night in this case. But there's all sorts. I mean, there's tricycles and there's bicycles and there's all sorts now. I mean,
and like you said, the speed that some of these things can get up to, and these scooters as well, that are illegal on the roads, and yet they go past the police, and the police don't even do anything.
Well, I was chatting to a chap the other day. He had one, and he said he had a switch on it, so that he can do up to 40 mile an hour
on a scooter.
On it. Well, it's basically a moped, isn't it? It's a electric moped. No helmet or anything like that. And he said, but I've got a switch, I can turn it off, so if I go past the police or the police see me, it only shows that it's doing 15 mile an hour. So there's people working to get round the scheme. So it is a bit of a problem, but I agree. I mean,
I just think that it's just a Wild West. It's got out of control, as usual. And these people are spoiling it for everybody else. But it's not just spoiling it, they are hurting people. They are killing people. But
you have to, I mean, I like to think I'm a responsible person and cycle with responsibly. And there are a lot of people like me. Do you want to punish them just because of the thugs in the world?
Well,
the idiot?
I mean, look, it's happened with cars. right?
Yeah.
All car drivers are being punished for the behaviour of a few car drivers, right? Yeah. So it does happen. We've all had to slow down to 20 because some people driving, you know, can't be trusted to watch the roads and behave appropriately. So everybody has to do it. So I don't see why that shouldn't apply to cyclists, right? Because...
No, I agree. As for deterring people from cycling, do you remember? I mean, I'm old enough to remember. I'm in my 60s now, so I remember when they introduced crash helmets for motorbikes, compulsory.
I don't remember that, but I think you're right that we didn't have to wear them like a lot of European countries don't, right?
Yeah, and then they did, and
oh yeah.
They said, oh, that would, you know, then it'll stop people riding their motorbikes and scooters and things. It didn't, did it?
No.
And, yeah, helmets compulsory, high-vis compulsory, lights compulsory.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in London, honestly, I don't know if it's what it's like in Doncaster. We get ninja cyclists.
In London. I used to work in London. You might tell from my accent.
I can,
yeah.
They're like ninjas.
Along the embankment, you'd have a load of black-clad...
That's what I'm saying, ninja cyclists, all wearing black, no lights.
Front of the traffic lights, no lights. And, yeah, I mean, a friend of mine used to call them professional organ donors. Like, I think you mentioned that before, yeah.
Yeah. It's just, they come out, I mean, you know, wearing black hoodies, complete ninja. And they come out of nowhere, and yet the car will get the blame. If they get hit by a vehicle, a car, the car's at fault, and it's like, how is that fair?
No, I mean, I think I'm the only person to be stopped by a policeman in London on cycle. It was my fault. The road was empty. I went. There was a traffic light. There was cycle lane as well, and the light was red, but there was nothing about. And I went through. I think it was a Sunday morning when I'd finished work.
And you got stopped for that?
The policewoman stepped out from behind the thing and said, stopped me and said, what's that? I said, well, I'm in a rush to get the train because I had to get to the train. And she said, well, the light was red. And I said, yeah, I know, but there's nothing coming. And she sort of let me go, but she gave me a good dressing down.
I literally think you should have a medal for that. You probably are the only person that's ever happened to. You should have a plaque up on your wall outside your house.
Yeah, but I mean, like I say, I had lights, high vis. I got stickers on my bike that are reflective.
Because you don't want to be knocked off your bike, right? I mean, it's.
No, well, I did get stuck between a taxi and a bus pulling out in Oxford Street once.
Ouch.
Yeah, I wasn't very happy. Bus was pulled into the stop. I went along. The taxi went to overtake me, realised there was a bollard in the middle of the road, and he cut back in, and the bus pulled out, and I was bouncing off the two of them. I managed to stay upright, and I only gave us the finger, but it was all right.
Gosh, you were lucky, I tell you. That could have been
very lucky, and it changed the way I approach cycling, etc. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I know there are sensible cyclists. I know there are, but like I said, like with car drivers, we've all had to pay the price for other people's bad behaviour, and so I'm afraid what goes around comes around, and you're going to have to pay the price for. Well, it doesn't seem like it will make much difference to you because you're a sensible rider, but everyone will have to pay the price for these idiots who think that they own the roads. Good to talk to you, Nigel. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to take a very quick break, but I will be back in just a moment.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. It is Petrie here, and this is Talkback, and you are doing just that. We're talking about cyclists and the numbers of people that are seriously injured by cyclists in this country is on the rise. And also, it's not just cyclists, but those e-bikes and the scooters and the fat bikes and all of those things that are now plaguing the streets and are causing real damage to pedestrians. And David has got in touch from New Zealand. Good morning. Dave in Turanga in New Zealand says, funny how cyclists are saving the world, but their lycra is oil-based. I love that. However, I do find a very slight nudge when they're on the pavement gives me satisfaction. That's so naughty. But I do get it, because they are a plague. I love New Zealand. I visited New Zealand many years ago. Because I had some very funny times in New Zealand that I can't really repeat. But anyway, it's a beautiful, beautiful country. So thank you for listening in from there. Andrew has said that during the summer months I use my mountain bike to do a 2-mile commute to work along the canal. I ride sensibly, just tootling along around 10 miles an hour. I'm in no rush. I slow down and give way to pedestrians when necessary and when it's unsafe to pass them. On a daily basis, I encounter these lycra-clad louts. They ride up behind me and impatiently ask me to move out of the way. They speed under the bridges where most are blind bends. They're impatient, dangerous speed freak menaces. Yep. I completely agree with that. So let's get to the calls now. And Kevin is in Basingstoke. Morning, Kevin.
Morning.
How are you this morning?
Good. I'm just watching a new thing called Tiptoe, Channel 4.
Oh, is that good? It's Russell T Davies, isn't it?
Yeah, I've just literally started watching it. There's a man hanging from a lamppost. So.
Oh, yeah. I looked at that because I love, what's his name, the main actor in it, the Scottish guy.
Oh yeah, he's in a comedy, isn't he?
Yeah.
A comedy. He stays with his daughter or something. I just watched a podcast and Russell T Davies was on that podcast.
He's an amazing writer.
Yeah, he mentioned that he'd just written this new thing and it was going to come out on Channel 4. So
Tiptoe. Oh, you have to let me know how it is when you get into it properly.
All right then, I will.
Yeah, let me know if it's worth watching.
Yeah. I think it probably will be. I mean,
I think
good,
I do like Russell T Davies's work. He's done some amazing dramas, really, really clever dramas. So it's probably really good. Yeah. Anyway, Kevin, what do you think of this cycling conversation?
Well, you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to
disagree with me. Yeah. Go on then.
Do you know there's about 1.5 million journeys on bikes every day in London.
Yeah, in Shepherd's Bush, I think they're all out on my street. Yeah.
And also, I think they said something like over the last 2 years, it's increased by 1 million.
Yeah.
And the actual injuries has gone down by 40% over a certain distance. So they're not. You know, I think we need to encourage more bikes. I mean, there's far more accidents caused by cars than bikes.
Yeah, we're not talking about cars, Kevin. We're talking about bikes.
I know we're talking about bikes, but if we encourage more bikes, then there'll be less accidents.
Well, I don't believe that's true because the numbers of accidents are rising. I don't know where you're getting your numbers from, but the numbers of...
Yeah, the number of accidents are rising, maybe, but that's only because there's more bikes. More people...
more people on bikes who are not being controlled by anything. And there is an increase, and it is men. I'm sorry to say it, this isn't man-bashing, but in my experience, it's only ever been men that have pushed me off the road. Their aggression, their need for speed, their behaviour, and also in places like Richmond Park or even my local parks, the speed that they're going at, we're trying to, you know, beat some, I don't know why, but some factious speed that they had last time. And they're making pedestrians' lives miserable. So they may be more journeys, but they are affecting pedestrians. And just as cars affected bikes...
Not in a big way. I think it's been...
No, it is in a big way. It's not exaggerated.
Like I said, they're much... The problem is not bikes. The problem is cars. They pollute the atmosphere, you know... kill far more people on the amount of journey.
But that's only because of the speeds that they do. If you're in a restricted area, the number of, like in London mostly, is 20 miles an hour now. That has dropped the number of accidents, of course, happening, right? So the accidents are falling, but we've got an increase in the number of bikes, you're right, and therefore an increase in the number of accidents. And they shouldn't just be able to get away with it, Kevin, because, oh, well, cars do more damage, because these bikes are killing people. They have killed people because they're not controlled.
I bet it's about 2.
It's well, actually, 10 of the deaths, 100%, 10 of them were all e-scooter and e-bike riders. It's not 2, but it doesn't matter if it's only 2. Cars have had to adjust. Drivers have had to adjust their speed. They've had to take bigger fines. We've all been punished for other drivers behaving recklessly. So I don't see why bikes shouldn't follow the same rule. Just because there's loads of them doesn't give them carte blanche to behave in any way that they want to, and affect people's lives and hurt people.
I do agree with that, but you know, it should be regulated. But
yeah, that's what I'm saying. A speed limit, at least, right?
But it's the speed limit is for their safety mainly, because they get injured more than they injure.
No, they're injuring pedestrians.
No,
they're hitting pedestrians. We've already had to drop our speed to 20. What do you want us to do? Walk with a man with a red flag?
It's more to do with reducing the speed so they don't get injured. Like
because of their reckless cycling.
Delivery drivers that are delivering food to people.
How does the speed is about their reckless cycling? So they have to be controlled to behave so they don't injure other people and themselves because they don't wear helmets.
I agree with that. But the whole thing is, people riding bikes is a good thing if they do it sensibly. We shouldn't discourage it. We should encourage it.
Yes, but encourage it within certain laws. Yeah. If everybody else has to obey laws, they have to obey laws, and they don't. And they certainly don't when it comes to speed. They certainly don't when it comes to stopping at red lights or pedestrian crossings. We have to. And you know, cyclists don't want to.
Cyclists act, you know, but most of them do behave themselves. Like I said, 1.5 million bike journeys.
Come to London and tell me that cyclists behave themselves.
My son works in London. He rides his bike. He's got one of those bikes that fold up.
Oh, he's got a Brompton bike. No, that's so. You do realise that people laugh at him with that.
Yeah, but it's the only bike you can really take on the train.
Everybody laughs at people with Brompton bikes. I mean, the only reason for me is because at the BBC, all the bosses had their Brompton bike. They were like, right. Seriously, I'm not even joking.
I think he's paid over £1,000 for it.
Oh, I know, they're not cheap. Rubbish. Yeah, it's showing off to a degree.
But he does it because he goes past Buckingham Palace every morning, and you know that's his journey down to Buckingham Palace. Yeah,
down the Mall, lovely.
Yeah, I think he works in he works for a big bank, so wherever they are.
Yeah.
But he loves it. He said it's so amazing riding his bike through central London.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful, providing he is cognizant and thoughtful of pedestrians, because they're not. If you're in London all the time,
and you are on their phone.
Yeah, well, people are on their phone, but car drivers have to look out for them being on their phone, right? Yeah. Cyclists also should look out for pedestrians who are on their phone. Whatever rules we have to obey, cyclists should obey, because you've got to be thoughtful of pedestrians are the most vulnerable. They are the most vulnerable, right? They are and even the Department of Transport and things say, right, it goes lorries, buses, cars, cyclists, pedestrians, right? That's the thing. Pedestrians are incredibly vulnerable, and I see a lot of cyclists, pedestrians step out into the road. They do it all the time. They're annoying, but we're ready for it as car drivers. Cyclists, you see, shouting and swearing at them and swerving, and they don't plan ahead. They're not thinking about the pedestrians. That's all I'm saying, is that they've got to be more thoughtful. They're not just them, oh, I'm a cyclist, I'm the best thing on the road, because there's pedestrians that do stupid things.
Yeah, I agree. But what I think about is, it seems like every now and again people start moaning about something. It's like vapes. People started moaning about vapes. I'd rather see people smoking vapes than I would cigarettes. Yeah. They're not as harmful. Nowhere near as harmful.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. But I do think that just because cars are worse doesn't mean that cyclists shouldn't be more controlled, because they are causing injury and harm and misery to pedestrians.
A very small amount of it. Yes, I agree.
No, not very small.
Yes,
it affects my life on a daily, and I'm sick of it. So it's not very small. And lots of people have contacted me. I've got so many messages.
You just want them to be slower and more considerate. You don't want to see less of them.
No, that's exactly right. I don't want them to be less of them. I want them to be slower and more considerate.
We're on the same page for once.
We always end up being on the same page, Kevin. we argue and then end up on the same page. We're like an old married couple.
I love coming on and arguing with people. I mean, I don't argue with you as much, but if I get on with someone like Kevin or...
but Kevin was born to shout. He loves to shout.
What's the other guy? The guy, is it Peter? No, not Peter. The guy with the glasses, grey hair.
Ian. Do you mean Ian?
Oh, it might be. But anyway,
the handsome silver fox.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's it.
Ian.
Him. But mainly Kevin, because I can have a good old argument with him. What are the other two I come on quite often? Thursday and Friday, the two together.
Peter I always say Peter Andre. Andre Walker and Ash.
Yeah, all there. I love getting them two going.
Yeah, we always said.
Well, they say, "Oh, here we go, the lefty."
Yeah, but that's I'm always accused of being a lefty, as you know. So I think that's probably why.
I wear it as a badge of honour. What's wrong with it?
I agree. When somebody says you're woke, I go, thank you. I think it's great. Anyway, Kevin, we'll have another argument and end up on the same page very soon, no doubt. You take care. Martin says, I walk my dog every day and I'm constantly trying to make sure there are no idiots on electric bikes. Too many clowns. It's really scary walking your dog now. Honestly, it is. Especially if they're on the lead, because you get the bikes trying to cut across the lead. Anyway, quick break. Back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. This is Talk, and this is Talk Back, and I'm Petrie. And we're talking about cyclists at the moment. Loads of messages here. Let me read them. I see you're going to talk about cyclists. In my opinion, the scourge of the road. They should all be obligated to the same rules of the road. No one-way streets, stop at red lights, no pavements or pedestrian crossings, adhere to speed limits, and this includes electric bikes and illegal e-scooters, exception for mobility scooters and wheelchairs, and that's from Chris in Essex. See, a lot of people, we all do agree with this, that they've just got to be regulated. They've got to be more thoughtful. They've got to be forced to be more thoughtful, just in the same way that car drivers have been. And Martin also sent this, which really made me smile, because I absolutely know and understand what you're saying about this. Re-electric bikes, Darwin at work. Maybe they are a way of thinning out the gene pool. I mean, who knows? But that did make me laugh. This one, we live 8 miles from Diss in Norfolk, where we walk to the town 2 to 3 times a week. Bikes speed past us and cycle the wrong direction on the one-way street and on the pavement. They don't care about anybody. Thank you for your great show. Love from Michael and Chrissy Thomas. Hello. Don't think you've messaged me before. How lovely to hear from you. Thank you. Yeah, it is. Cyclists they've just got to be more thoughtful about everybody else, and they're just not. And that really annoys me. Gary says cyclists should absolutely be speed capped. If I have to stick to 30 miles an hour, lucky you, 30, I'm 20. And get points on my licence for nicking in a bus lane. They shouldn't be able to weave through traffic like it's a Tour de France on Red Bull. Just tag them like they do with cats. A little device on the bike that shows their speed, beeps when they enter a bus lane or pavements, and gives them a loving little zap if they jump a red light. Fair's fair. If we're all sharing the roads, let's share the restrictions and the occasional electrocution. I'm not sure I'd go quite that far, Gary. Mind you, sometimes I absolutely would. Maybe a cattle prod when I'm walking the dogs. Maybe that's the answer to a rogue cyclist. Oh, cattle prod. Andy is in Rochdale. Hello, Andy. Good morning.
Hi.
Hi. What do you think?
Well, my thing is, it's not really about who should drive bikes or whatever. What it is you have money spent where I live on cycle lanes. Right, so basically, the Rochelle and Bury has been in turmoil because the council has spent fortunes.
Millions
to provide cycle lanes. Okay? So, Southern and like people around where I live, the congestion and chaos it's caused is unreal. So basically what I've done is provide cycle lanes for drug dealers.
Really? Is that what you... Oh, on their e-bikes?
Well, no, because I've never seen one person... It's not... I mean, I've lived in the south of France, right? And all Europe, right? But in Rochdale... They've spent millions and millions of pounds to build these cycle lanes. For who?
Yeah.
For who?
Good question. Because you never see people in them, do you? It's just... It's
unreal. And like, without being too blunt, I work in utilities and I've done for 20 years. So I know the script works. And you're like, and everyone's like, what the hell is going on? They basically provided and built a carriageway for cyclists. Well, I'm very sorry, but I've never seen a cyclist go down one.
It is bizarre, isn't it? Because even though there are these millions of bikes in London, You don't see them in the cycle lanes.
Well,
You
no,
really
we're not
don't.
talking about London now. We're talking about Rochdale.
No, I know, but I'm just referring back to my experience here. It's true that there's miles and miles of cycle lanes, but the cyclists, you know, they're either using the roads or they're
using them.
Yeah. I don't know.
You know, and then, but we've got millions of potholes and millions of like bent drains, and you're like, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, they think, you know, if you build it, they will come, right? That's the idea. Is if they build all these cycle lanes, then people will start to use these cycle lanes. That's the theory. I don't think so either. But there's so much rain in this. It's miserable. Why would you want to cycle in the rain?
But you call it Rochdale? It's still lovely. Yeah, but I know it might rain a lot, but we're in the Pennine puddle, aren't we? But honestly, you'd never see anybody about the chaos it's caused.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I was in it was a big renovated Sutton. 2 hours just sat around. And it's down to like some cycle lane.
Yeah.
And for God's sake, I mean, what's going on? Where we can drive somewhere else, and like you're going to break your tyre or break your wheels, so it's an absolute. I don't know.
Well, there are these. Have you got cycle superhighways in Rochdale? Because we've got a couple of those in London.
Yeah, we have. If anyone wants to see a cycle superhighway, we want to take photographs of Manchester Road, right? It's unreal. They've spent millions and millions of pounds on this, and the entire community is like, what for?
Yeah, I get it, and it drives over. Well, you know, like you said, you're sitting in a traffic jam, and there's a great big cycle superhighway or whatever they're called, and there isn't a single bike in them. I mean, you do see them at rush hour in London, because there are a lot of cyclists here. But honestly, goodness me, good to talk to you, Andy. Thank you very much indeed. I did want to read another one here. Hills has said, I find a good sideways shove often helps, but seriously, they should all now have license plates or chips in them so they can be identified. Mopeds had a 50cc limit on them and you had to have L plates. Yeah, and you have to be registered. I mean, that's the thing. I'm a cyclist. I probably average 12 miles per hour. Cycling isn't all about mirroring the Tour de France. Cycle lanes are, though, sometimes neglected by local authorities and are totally unsuitable for cycles because of the debris that accumulates. We aren't all a distraction and a menace. I'm really not with your opinion on this issue. I know. Look, I get it.